blue crystals float in the air as the Supreme God declares that this will be the end of the hero Alan. He begins reverting magic, warning him that he won't be able to stop what has already begun. But Alan stands firm. He meets his gaze, saying they'll just have to see about that. He vows he'll protect it no matter what. He roars for him to taste the might of his power, the Supreme Gods, unleashing a devastating strike. Cosmic light crashes as Alan slashes through it with a cry. He leaps into the air. The two charge at each other, clashing head-on with all their strength. He shouts with everything he has. Throughout the city, his fierce face flashes across a massive billboard screen, a crowd cheering below. The Legend of Hero Alan is a beloved fantasy story that has been adapted into various forms of media. In a dark room, the original writer of the book sits before a computer. He mutters that just a bit more effort, and the manuscript will finally be complete. His assistant urges him to rest, but he snaps back, saying it doesn't matter since he'll die soon anyway. He insists that treatment could prolong his life. He refuses, saying life-prolonging treatments would stop him from finishing his work. He declares that only he can complete the story. Through sweat and pain, he vows to die as an author. He watches in silence as he continues typing. Tears well as he finally says he won't stop him anymore. He promises to support him until the work is done, no matter what. His tired face clenches, thinking of his responsibility to finish it. Finally, he types the last words and whispers that it's done. His body collapses from the chair, his assistant rushing to catch him. As consciousness fades, he feels fulfilled, knowing he poured everything into it. But then his eyes open again to an unfamiliar ceiling. He realizes he's alive, even after all the exhaustion. Looking at his hands, he notices his body feels young and unhurt. He walks through the hall as he wonders where he is. Catching sight of a mirror, he rushes over and freezes. He stutters, trying to make sense of what he's seeing. He stares at his reflection, flabbergasted that he's become Will. Will, a minor character from his book, a spoiled noble who flaunted his family's power without having any real talent. He starts to wonder about the possibility of transmigrating to his very own story. He clenches his teeth, frustrated that of all roles, he became Will. He steps outside and the mansion around him makes it clear that he's in Will's family's residence. As he looks at their family portrait, he realizes he's still in the early portion of the story. His family is destined to fall due to their corruption. If Will follows the same path, his downfall is inevitable. But he sees this second chance as an opportunity. Since he's been reborn inside the very world he created, he wants to save a certain character, a person who was meant to die for the sake of the novel. As a writer, he made such a decision for the novel's growth. But now that he lives inside that world, he refuses to let that happen. Clenching his fist, he knows he must gain strength even if he knows the story all throughout. He knows that Will has no talent in swordsmanship or magic, but he won't let that stop him. He reminds himself that he's the creator of this world, carrying all its knowledge in his head. With confidence, he vows to become the strongest by using everything he knows from the original story. The day of the academy entrance exam arrives, and his father sternly demands that he must pass, no matter what. He bows respectfully, assuring his father to leave it to him. He tells him he also has something to say, which surprises his old man. He asks him to stop meddling with the top-secret labor exploitation done underground. His eyebrows crease, asking him how he knows about it. He brushes it off and warns that if the information gets out, their family will collapse for sure. He tells him not to speak further and to focus only on passing the academy entrance. He bows again, saying he understands. He turns away and bids goodbye. Riding the carriage to the exam site, he reflects on his situation. Instead of taking the exam, he's going to the capital and live a completely different life. If he can find a hidden treasure in the ancient ruins, he'll gain power. His thoughts are suspended as the carriage shakes violently. A force crashes into it, overturning the carriage, tossing him out into the dirt. He looks up with wide eyes. He scrambles up, staring at the giant rank a red dragon before him. He panics, questioning why such a monster would appear in this area. Then he notices the carriage zooming past him, urging him to call it out. He remembers there wasn't any mention of this in the original story. The dragon's flames rush toward him, forcing him to dodge desperately. He realizes the monster is deliberately targeting him and laments that he's facing death so soon after being reborn. Escape seems impossible, leaving him with defeating it as the only option. He recalls every detail he knows about the dragon, but without magic, his knowledge is futile. He hears quick footsteps from a distance, and just as he despairs, he sees a flash of blue light. A boy charges in, unleashing an ice spell that freezes the battlefield. As he watches the attack caging the dragon, he wonders in disbelief. The dragon retaliates with flames, forcing both of them to step back. He tells him he came to help. He thanks him, still unable to believe who he is. The one who saved him is none other than Hero Alan, the story's protagonist. But he knows that at this point in the story, Alan hasn't fully awakened. He explains that his coachman has gone to call for reinforcements, so they just need to hold out. But he smirks, saying there's no need to wait since both of them can defeat the beast. He asks if he's serious and he nods, saying it's easier to defeat than to defend. He laughs, asking if he has a plan, and he confirms it. He instructs Alan to keep hitting the dragon's wings with ice shadow after he makes an opening. Drawing his sword, he charges forward, leaving the attacks to Alan. He knows the dragon's weak point is its magic core, which lies in its chest. It growls, drawing its claws out. He dives in, reminding himself that his character actually has untapped strength never revealed in the original story. Moments after, he's collapsed on the ground as he clutches his wound. He realizes his injury is too severe and he might actually die. The dragon roars, flames engulfing the battlefield. He curses, unwilling to accept death so soon after being transported to this world. Then, a calm voice reaches him. From behind, Alan promises he won't let him die. Blue flames swirl around him. With determination in his eyes, he vows to save him. He stares in shock, recognizing this as the awakening of high-tier magic. The dragon thrashes, unleashing a massive force of scorching flames. He stands before it before calling out a spell. He unleashes a blizzard-like power of his own. A torrent of freezing energy surges forward, overwhelming the flames. He recalls that at this point in the original story, he shouldn't have been able to use such a spell yet. He watches in awe as his awakening happens because he's fighting to protect another person. The impossible feat becomes reality, foreshadowing his true growth as a hero. The red dragon freezes solid, locked in a prison of ice, its body cracking under the cold. He stares wide-eyed, shaken by the incredible power he just unleashed. He turns to Will, worried if he's alright. He manages a weak smile, saying he's fine thanks to him. At that moment, reinforcements arrive, shouting that they've come to help. They stop in shock at the sight of the frozen dragon. They drag away the monster behind the wagons after treating Will's injuries. He joins the carriage heading to the royal capital. Sitting together inside the carriage, he asks if his injuries are really okay. He reassures him, knowing he plans to ask the church to heal him fully. Then he suddenly asks how he knew his name. The question startles him, unsure how to answer. He presses, recalling that he called out to him during the battle. He awkwardly deflects, pretending he isn't sure, although he knows he did it, since the pressure of the battle left him no time to be cautious. But he also knows the hero doesn't remember much of his childhood, so spinning lies would be easy. He tells him a fabricated story about once staying in a small village as a child, saying he reminds him of a boy he met there. His eyes widen as he realizes it must have been Tepes village. He asks in pretense if he is really that same person. He awkwardly says the possibility is high. He hesitates before admitting it might be true, even though he has no memories of his childhood. He continues to act confused, while relieved he was able to manage it. He apologizes for not remembering his name, but he brushes it off. He looks at him sincerely and thanks him for saving him. He smiles cheerfully, saying they should help each other when in need. He thinks about how he's such a hero to not make him feel indebted after saving him. He asks him for his name again. He offers his hand, introducing himself as Will. They shake hands and agree to look out for each other from then on. When they reach the royal capital of the Celica kingdom, the slain red dragon draws the crowd's attention. Merchants eagerly want to buy it, offering 10 silver coins. He notes how that enormous amount of money is a fair price for such a monster. At first, he's reluctant to accept such a huge sum, but he insists he defeated it, so it's only right that he accepts it. He turns to him, saying it wasn't a solo feat since he helped. He smiles, saying they'll split it equally. He asks him if he's sure, since he'll gladly accept. He reassures him that it's the right thing to do. He thanks him, saying he's still the nice person he was. He laughs and says he doesn't plan on spending all of it anyway. He gratefully accepts it. His share of the money can help him with his plans to obtain magic power. He also knows this marks the end of his identity as someone who can't use magic. He asks him if he came to the royal capital for the Magic Academy entrance exam. He shakes his head, saying he's on a trip to many places. He says he thought they would be taking the exam together. He says it's just expected of him to take the exam and offers some advice. He points out that while he has incredible magical power, he struggles to control it. He's shocked, asking how he knew such a thing. He tells him he saw how he used his magic during the battle. He tells him he can make an improvement if he's made informed of one thing. He tells him the secret to focus his power on one point. He explains that magic is activated by ensuring it's flowing inside a body properly. He says it's all he can help with, since he must uncover a great understanding for himself. He tells him it's just his advice, and it's up to him if he'll take note of it. Encouraged, he vows to take his advice seriously and work hard to improve. He turns to leave, wishing him good luck, while he thanks him for everything. They bid each other goodbye, promising to see each other soon. He reflects on his kindness as the ideal protagonist he had envisioned. He then turns to his own plans. While walking through the city, he spots a royal carriage. His eyes widen when he sees the girl inside. He couldn't help but be surprised that she really exists. That girl is Princess Selena, a character in the novel who dies, and the one he needs to save. He's stunned by her beauty, unable to believe he caught sight of such. He then ventures into the slums of the royal capital, where most of the poor people live. It's a dangerous place filled with crime and illegal dealings. He came there to seek cooperation from a certain person. Before he can proceed, he's confronted by a group of thugs who threaten him and demand his belongings. He calmly refuses. His demeanor prompts the thugs to attack, laughing as they launch into him. As they approach, he acknowledges the weakness of his character, but he slashes them with his sword, and they cry out in pain. Despite such weakness, he still has enough power to get accepted into the Magic Academy. He turns to their leader, asking who exactly they're planning to rob. He stutters, nervous at the sight of his friends on the ground. Then he makes a run for it, screaming an apology as he goes. He shuts his eyes in disbelief. He walks through the streets until he arrives at a secluded shop marked by a creaking wooden sign. Pushing the door open, he steps inside, where shelves are lined with strange trinkets and potions. From within the shadows, a cloaked figure greets him. She gives him a sly smile, remarking on his noble bearing and mocking his presence in such a place. He dismisses the remark, making it clear he has business to discuss. He states his request, not directed to the Information Guild master of the slums, but to her as an elf. She stiffens, taken aback that he knows the truth. Informant Nora is a character who will help Alan in the future, and she demands to know who told him. He tells her he just happens to know. He smirks confidently, claiming his knowledge surpasses even that of famed informant like her. She challenges him to say something that would truly shock her. She says that if he succeeds, she'll listen to his request for free. He accepts with ease, reminding her she must keep her word if he succeeds. He begins revealing her secrets, that her real name is Garnet. She's 180 years old, and an elf who abandoned her tribe to live in the slums. She stiffens, her composure breaking as he exposes how she uses wind magic to eavesdrop and survive as an informant. She stutters, barely able to ask him how he knew such things. With a teasing edge, he goes further and recites her exact body measurements. She erupts in shock and embarrassment, demanding to know why he even knows that much. He asks if she'll finally acknowledge him as more informed than her. Defeated and humiliated, she agrees, telling him to stop talking. Satisfied, he declares that he has now secured his guide. She glares but relents, asking where he wants her to lead him. He tells her he doesn't need her as an informant but as an elf. Her expression hardens as he states his destination to her homeland, the Elven Forest. Later that night, the two travel by carriage under the moonlight, heading toward their new destination. She notices how the trees are withered and scattered now. He says it's changed a lot, which is one of the reasons why he wanted to come. She asks what he means, but he dismisses it. She insists he stop beating around the bush, but he only says he can't decide just yet. As the wagon rolls forward, he points out that they've already reached their destination. The carriage halts before the guarded entrance. An elf raises her weapon and orders them to stop immediately. She declares that only elves are allowed to pass through this forest and tells them to turn back. She takes a deep breath before stepping out. She calls him Eric, asking him not to speak so indifferently. He points his weapon and demands to know who they are and how they know her name. She removes her hood, revealing her face and calmly saying it's her. He freezes in shock, recognizing her as Lady Garnet. She tells him he's with her. Overcome with respect, he steps aside, permitting them to enter. As they pass through, she dismisses the fuss, saying she's just paying a visit. News spreads quickly through the settlement that she has returned. Children rush forward, calling out to her with excitement. They step out of the carriage and she smiles faintly. The children welcome her with a cheerful smile. He observes silently as she laughs and approaches them. He knows she's actually the Elven Princess and is loved by everyone. Surrounded by children, she asks him about his next step. He requests to be taken to the Elder's home. She agrees, leading him to the great tree that serves as the Elder's dwelling. The Elder greets them harshly, criticizing her for bringing an outsider. He thanks her for bringing him there, prompting the old man's fury for being ignored. He coldly dismisses him, refusing to hear a word from someone outside their kind. He counters, declaring he came to resolve the corruption that is killing the forest. He scoffs, but he continues, revealing that the wind spirits have been disturbed, causing the trees themselves to wither. He presses further, pointing out they lack the ability to calm the wind spirits. He stares at him in disbelief, rattled by how much he seems to know. She realizes this explains the withered trees they passed earlier. He accuses him of being the culprit, but will denies it, saying it's the opposite. He declares himself to be a messenger of God, sent to save the elves with divine guidance. The Elder is stunned, while she quietly processes his words. He continues, explaining that the gods cannot interfere directly, which is why he took human form to deliver their will. He trembles with emotion, reassured that their people have not been abandoned. He clutches his hands together, vowing to save their tribe. He sighs in relief that God didn't abandon them. He reflects that he must keep his true intention of forming a contract with the spirit hidden. He admits that his current power is unable to calm the wind spirit. He asks to be lent their treasured mirror and the fairy's bell. He's convinced he's the god's messenger for him to know such information, so he decides to agree. But he raises a finger, adding that he has a condition. The words make him pause. Soon outside, an elf girl walks with them. He notes that it's only natural to be cautious when lending out the tribe's treasures. Garnet teases her, Shal, for being the guard. He turns to them, asking if they're acquainted. She says they used to play together as kids. She explains that it was about 100 years ago, and he notes their sense of time. Shal never made an appearance in the novel, but she is still a talented person. She says she can think of another person better suited to be the guard. She smiles sadly and says it's because she's the intended sacrifice if the spirit pacification fails. They turn to her in surprise. She clutches her shoulders, asking if she's okay with that. She smiles and says she doesn't mind if it's for the sake of the forest. She mutters in disbelief. He acknowledges her noble resolve, yet points out that her sacrifice alone would not be enough to stop the disaster. She asks if he knows that as God's messenger. He reveals that the turbulence of the ley line is the root cause, and unless they address it, no offering would matter. Shell bows her head and asks what she should do. Just as they discuss, a violent wind spirit attacks. She calls for them to watch out, but he reacts instantly, using the spirit mirror to repel the assault. She notices what he's holding and gushes at the fact that he used it to repel it. With firm resolve, he tells them to trust him. Shell watches him in awe and calls him Lord Will. He declares that there is nothing more thrilling than saving someone. He reflects on the attack just now. Its location seems to be drawing closer to the Great Forest. It's still too far, so he concludes it must be caused by the rampage. The girls realize the severity of the situation as the energy grows nearer. Then, a fierce wave of power surges against them. He, however, notes that it is fortunate the spirit chose to come to them directly. The wind spirit, Jin, makes its appearance, radiating immense power. It unleashes a direct attack at him. He faces it with a calm demeanor, even able to give a small smile. Then he swiftly counters its forceful blows. Holding the mirror, the spirit turns furious. It lunges in with its entire body. He immediately blocks and runs away from it. He deduces that it began resorting to physical attacks instead of controlled strikes after seeing the mirror. Because of this, he decides to use a different approach, too. Drawing out a dagger, he infuses it with flames. With a decisive strike, he launches forward, flames erupting and engulfing the area. The flames meet the spirit's body, pushing it back. The dagger is a magic item he purchased from the black market in the slums. He knows that its magic is strong, but its fighting ability is not a threat. He notes that a rampaging spirit is easier to read, as long as one understands its weaknesses. He engages the spirit directly. It starts to cover its body with its wings, but he unleashes an attack, forcing it to uncover its wings. He spots its body beneath them. Holding his dagger tight, he leaps to reach it from behind and strikes. The spirit cries out in pain. He unveils a chain and wraps it around its body. The spirit thrashes and howls, but the chains hold firm. With calm assurance, he declares the restraining complete. The chain possesses the same magic as the dagger. He took note of its flaying weakness and used it to prepare for the battle. With Will's original power alone, it would have been impossible to win against it. But as the original writer, he used his knowledge. He smiles, acknowledging his knowledge as his strongest weapon. Garnet stares in shock, asking if he's real. He simply explains that it was necessary and nothing more. Shell drops to the ground. As tears stream down her face, she thanks him. She says he saved her life. He tells her it's not over yet since the spirit has yet to regain consciousness. Holding out another item, he says it will soon happen. The item starts to sing enchantment that awakens the spirit immediately. Life returns to its eyes as it breaks free from the chains. It stares at its claws and asks if he's finally stopped rampaging. Garnet shockingly asks if she just heard it speak despite not understanding it. Their language can only be deciphered by a higher being, but since he created such a language, he's able to understand it. He tells it that he was the one who stopped it. She remarks how he's speaking the same gibberish now, while she determinedly calls him awesome. The spirit's surprised that he can understand their language. Then it thanks him for stopping it cause more destruction. He says he doesn't need gratitude and requests to be granted spirit magic in exchange. The spirit agrees, and when it asks his name, he confidently introduces himself. A brilliant surge of light envelops him as the contract is sealed. Now bound to the wind spirit, he gains the ability to wield wind magic. He summons it and thanks the spirit. With this magic, he's completed the first step of his plan. She asks if he just casted a spirit magic just now. He says he managed to learn it while saving them. She remains wary, asking if that's something that can be learned. She says spirit magic can only be wielded by the previous elven elder and remarks at how weird he is. As the night falls, he could only think about how it's possible because he's the writer after all. They walk back to the settlement. The children greet them, but he spots the elder from a distance. He asks if he's already leaving. He confirms it, saying he's done his promise. He explains that the trees will return to normal after some time. After some thought, he decides to fix it before he leaves. The elder mutters in disbelief. He summons the wind spirit and it emerges in an instant. He stares wide-eyed, asking if he's seeing correctly. The elves around couldn't help but stare in shock as well. He then commands Jin to restore the withered trees to their original state. He accepts without hesitation. The trees began gaining back its life, magic coursing through the entire forest. They stare in awe as the forest glows beautifully. They watch how the trees are now back to their original state. He thanks him, reminding him not to stir up chaos again and to settle the unstable ley lines. He acknowledges it before leaving. The elves stare in awe, realizing their savior has calmed the crisis. The elder trembles before announcing loudly that he's the Lord's savior. Word spreads quickly, and the elves are told to prepare a grand feast and celebration. Villagers rush to prepare, excitement filling the air. The night erupts with liveliness, food carried out for the feast. He observes and notes how vibrant the atmosphere has become. She remarks that this joy is proof of just how much he's already done for them. She admits it's been a long time since the elves could smile with such ease. She bows and genuinely thanks him for his help. He acknowledges how she nearly became a sacrifice before his intervention. He brushes aside the heaviness, telling her to enjoy the feast instead. She stares at his offered hand in awe and agrees. Garnet observes how the shy shell is opening up her heart. She thinks it can't be helped around the so-called Lord Savior. The banquet carries on with food and joyous festivities. He reflects that elves seldom share meals with outsiders, yet here they welcomed him with open hospitality. Inside a room, he admits it feels good to be on the receiving end of the elves' gratitude. He's thankful he managed to prevent the forest from perishing. Yet curiosity gnaws at him as to what kind of changes his irregular existence might bring to this world. Despite the uncertainty, he looks forward to what's to come. The next day arrives, and the elves see him off at the village gates. They bid goodbye as the carriage leaves. During the wagon ride, he decides to part ways at a certain area. She questions his choice, asking if he plans to continue on foot. He insists his destination is too far and reminds her it's better to return to the capital and continue her job. She smiles and accepts his concern, parting with words of care for both of them. Shell calls out, bidding her farewell with a wave. Together, they watch her leave. He turns to her and asks if she's sure about following him now that the forest is peaceful again. She admits that being apart from her people feels lonely, but he's the reason she's still alive. She tells him she wants to make her life useful for him, even if only a little. She asks him directly if she's a burden to him. He answers with reassurance as he mentally reflects that she's a talented elf, even if she doesn't realize it. Shell, emboldened, vows to work hard so she can be of use to him. By saving them, he altered events that were never written in the original story. These very stories will one day shape how the world ends, and at the time, he had no idea of such a thing. They arrive at the port for his next destination to obtain the sorcerer's ring. He notes that he would be able to wield magic freely if he possesses the item. The ring is currently buried in another continent's ancient ruins. With her, he plans to go to that continent. They board the ship, and she couldn't help but be in awe at the sight. He notices how this must be her first time boarding a ship. She's never left the forest before, so everything feels unfamiliar and wondrous. He couldn't help but think they're one of the same. Other adventurers gather on the deck, talking about their guard being a B-rank magician adventurer. He overhears them and wonders about the magician adventurer. B-rank adventurers are of high caliber, so it's only natural that they would feel at ease. Since he has a lot of free time in his hands, he decides to check it out. She closely follows behind him as they walk away. Among the crew, a man steps forward and declares himself capable of protecting the vessel, wielding his staff with dramatic flair. He claims the strength of a B-rank adventurer, more than enough to handle threats at sea. The crowd watches in awe, impressed by the display. He, however, sees through the act, noting how flashy and unnecessary the show is. The loud adventurer's eyes settle on Will, asking if he, too, is an adventurer protecting the ship. He simply responds that he's just a passenger. He backhandedly says he does look weak despite possessing a sword. Shell turns furious behind him. He excuses himself and storms off, dramatically ending his display. He walks away and reminds everyone to enjoy the trip. She comments on how mean he is, and he says it's expected of an adventurer. He tells her that as long as the ship is safe, there's no need to escalate the situation. With that, the ship sets sail toward their destination. It starts to leave as they both smile at the future awaiting ahead of them. Later in the night, she struggles and tells him she's feeling sick. He tells her she's getting seasick. She apologizes to him for being a burden, but he reassures her it's not to worry about. He hands her some medicine and water, saying she must be exhausted after everything new she's experienced. When word spreads that monsters are attacking outside, passengers rush to watch the fight. He notes how they're treating it like some kind of entertainment, which is understandable, given their situation. She tells him not to worry about her and insists he goes and watch upstairs. He laughs and says it would be an interesting sight, but he can always watch it some other time. He tells her it's just the first day and there will be plenty of other chances to witness it in the future. Her eyes soften, thanking him for his kindness. To distract her, Will shifts the conversation to talk about her talent. She looks at him confused as she echoes his words. He explains that the elves boast many excellent mages, but her talent is remarkable compared to the others. Embarrassed, she insists she can't use magic at all. He explains the two main reasons one might fail at magic. It's either lacking a magic circuit entirely or not knowing how to use it. He confidently states that she falls into the second case, meaning her potential is still untapped. He surprises her with his certainty. He reveals a compass, saying it's how he knows. She stares at it in confusion, pointing out that it seems to be broken. He says it's not and asks her where it's pointing at. She realizes it's pointing at her. He explains it's a magic item that always points to sources of great magic. He tells her she possesses massive power, but she hasn't been able to use it. To explain it simply, he says her talent is extraordinary. She doubts it, unsure of her own strength. He reassures her, promising to help unlock it. From above, they hear the adventurer's voice, boasting at his strength. Dominic soaks up praise from others. He laughs and says it's just expected. He compares her potential to them, hinting she could surpass them. She smiles, determined to train hard. He promises training will begin once she recovers. She smiles and agrees, Their journey has been calm so far after 4 days of sailing. Dominic takes pride in his flashy displays, reassuring everyone that the sea route remains safe. Though his personality is difficult, he just lets him be since he's doing a great job. Meanwhile, Shell trains tirelessly, refining her control over magic each day aboard the ship. Her energy bursts outward, raw yet steadily improving with every attempt. He calls for her to stop, measuring her progress carefully. Exhausted, she collapses onto the bed, groaning at the strain. He encourages her, pointing out how much she has grown already. From only sustaining power for a minute at first, she can now hold it much longer. She thanks him, determined to hone her strength further so she can help him. He acknowledges her resolve, entrusting her with expectations. He reflects on her talent, realizing how rare such potential is. Her growth assures him that she will become a valuable ally. He's amazed at the fact that a hidden character with outstanding talent existed. Then the room begins shaking violently. He pauses, startled by the sudden outburst. Before he can react, the ship itself trembles under a greater disturbance. The adventurers cry out in panic that a monster has arrived. A monstrous presence reveals itself, scales glimmering and eyes glowing. The sea serpent emerges, the crowd running away as best as they can. They shout in fear, but assure themselves that Dominic can handle the threat. They laugh nervously, trying to convince themselves the situation is under control. They call out for him to handle the monster. He tries to act confident, though his voice wavers. He recognizes the creature as a leviathan. It's an S-rank sea dragon known for its ferocity. He admits to himself there is no way he can win against it. They urge him to defeat it like always. He forces a laugh, although he knows this one is on another level. He realizes his ship will sink if he does nothing, so he decides to fight anyway. He unleashes Lightning Blaster at the beast. The power zooms through and attacks the monster's body. He cheers for himself, saying the attack landed. His relief turns into confusion when he takes a second look. The dragon eyes him with glowing eyes. It roars furiously. He's stunned to see his magic has no effect. It rises and gathers its power. In an instant, it unleashes a devastating blast. He quickly reacts, summoning a lightning barrier to shield himself. But the monster's power proves overwhelming, pressing him back despite his efforts. With a scream, he's blasted away, collapsing onto the deck as the serpent roars. The people watch in horror, whispering in disbelief that even Dominic, their strongest, has fallen. Panic spreads, since if he couldn't handle it, then no one else on the ship stood a chance. The serpent looms closer, while he despairs at his defeat. The beast strikes again, and he couldn't help but accept his death. From behind, Will quietly calls upon Jin, commanding him to protect Dominic. The spirit appears in a burst of green light, intercepting the serpent's blow and shielding him from certain death. Shocked, he looks up at the spirit in front of him. He identifies the creature, a calamity-level beast far beyond Dominic's power. Stunned, he realizes he's the adventurer-looking passenger. He says despite his looks, he's more than capable of holding his own in a fight. He steps forward and announces that he will take over the battle. He's left in disbelief, but he makes it clear that he intends to defeat the monster himself. He calls it impossible to win against such a monster. He confidently says he can. He tries to reason, but he's already turning to Shao. He instructs her to watch closely and learn from his fighting style. She agrees eagerly, and he smiles at her. With that, he prepares to face the monster. Standing beside Jin, he begins. The monster locks eyes with him. Unfazed, he says it's time to test the strength of the spirit's magic. The monster spots him beside Jin. It decides to dive back into the water. He looks on as the people behind gain composure. He deduces that the dragon is trying to lure them into the water where it gains the upper hand. He notes that they would instantly lose once it destroys the ship during the fight. He tells the spirit to fly and carry him on its back. Taking to the skies, he gains the advantage of height. Gasps erupt from the onlookers as they watch him ascend. Determined to draw the beast's attention away from the ship, he unleashes a concentrated blast of wind magic. The attack crashes into the water and it spots it immediately. It emerges from the water and faces them head-on. He instantly commands Jin to take cover. The serpent retaliates, sending a burst of magic power towards their shield. The barrier cracks, but the monster goes back into the water. He notices the cracks. From the ship, Dominic marvels at his power, saying he's on a whole different level. Jin reminds him that he won't be able to keep up if it goes on. He agrees, saying the power consumption proves to be too much. He knows that a quick victory would be ensured if they target its core, but it's too risky. Still, he finds another way and prepares himself. The monster emerges once again. He shouts that as a B-rank adventurer, he can deal it some damage. He tells him to run away instead, but he's already casting a spell. He unleashes full power towards it. Lightning crackles as it shoots straight to the monster. From above, they see it dive back down to the water. He notes how the monster is now about to target Dominic, who's on board. If they let that happen, the ship will be destroyed. He smugly points towards it and claims it got scared and ran away. Will starts thinking of a way to keep the monster away from the ship. When the idea connects, he instructs Jin to return to the ship once he tells him to. He orders everyone on board to brace themselves. Everyone grabs on something to keep them steady. From below the water, the monster is preparing to strike. He commands Jin to do as he's told. Then he conjures up magic in his hands and lifts the ship off the water. Shell watches, stunned, as the entire ship flies over. The monster emerges from below it, denied of the attack it was planning. It looks around, confused about the ship's whereabouts. He calls the timing perfect. The core is easier to attack once it's out of the water. He casts a spiraling spell and launches it towards the core. The attack punches through its body, shattering the core in the process. It starts to convulse and howl out in pain. It instantly drops back to the water. The crowd stares in disbelief as he successfully defeats a leviathan. He notes that it all turned out all right since they managed to defeat it. Turning a crisis into an opportunity feels just as good as any other story. He might also have to thank his small contribution. Jin dissolves into a breeze, saying he has to leave, and he offers a quiet thanks. Passengers crowd around, cheering their savior. He laughs warmly and tells them they're welcome. A day after that battle, the ship finally reaches the Ulas's continent. At Hull Port, the passengers start disembarking. Feeling the firm ground again, they express relief and joy. Two men offer their gratitude to him, saying he'll receive nice treatment if he wishes to visit their company. Others immediately approach, eager to offer their businesses instead. He nervously laughs as he watches them argue. From behind, Dominic calls him. He admits to underestimating Will in the beginning and apologizes for it. He acknowledges his mistake after witnessing the Leviathan battle. He accepts his words without hostility, noting such flaws are common among adventurers. He notices his noble demeanor, and he mentally admits that he is one. With sincerity, he thanks him properly for saving them. The two shake hands in mutual respect, while also thanking him for protecting them. Later, Shell reflects on Dominic's change of heart. He comments that Dominic is rare among adventurers for his education. She praises his sharp analysis, impressed again. As they walk through the city, she asks where they're headed to, and he says they're going to an item shop. She asks if it's because they need to prepare supplies for their journey in this new continent. She looks confused when he says she's only half correct. They arrive at a small, secluded shop. Despite better options earlier, she wonders why he chose this place. Inside, the shopkeeper eyes him with suspicion, asking who he is. He calmly replies it's his first time there. He tells him to just bring out anything he finds interesting as he chugs off his drink. He tells him that what he's really seeking is the man's skill as an enchanter. She looks up, surprised to learn the shopkeeper is an enchanter. The shopkeeper grows tense, asking how he knew. He mentions he heard from an acquaintance who admires the man's work and requests an enchanted item bag. An item bag is a magical storage pack that can hold far more than normal, essential for adventurers. The shopkeeper is revealed to be Tinto, once a renowned enchanter. Many adventurers once sought his services to strengthen their armor, but after an argument with a friend, he left the industry and ran an item shop instead. He refuses, saying he no longer enchants. He instead asks to borrow his enchanting tools. He's surprised, questioning him, but he insists and offers to pay. After hesitation, he agrees, asking for 1 gold coin. He accepts without complaint and tosses over the payment. He catches it and quietly studies him, intrigued. He starts to walk around the shop, picking items off as he goes. He lifts the items in front of them both. Surprised, he asks if he's planning to craft his own item bag. He confirms it, but he warns him that he needed to practice for years for such a skill. He acknowledges it but claims he's capable of making one himself. He silently assesses him. Then he bursts out in laughter. He makes a wager, offering him an item if he's able to make it. He accepts without fuss as she senses that the situation seems to be escalating. He calls for them to follow him and leads them into a back room. He presents the enchanting setup and says he won't be giving instructions. He says he's fine with it as he sets the crystal on the circle. Enchanting happens by engraving ancient language into the item. It's a craft anyone can perform with the right method. There are several types of item bags, some far harder than others, but he decides to make a basic version. He lifts a quill-like tool and starts inscribing the circuit. The room fills with light as mana flows. When it clears, a finished bag sits on the circle. He stumbles back, stunned that he was really able to do it. She gazes at him with open admiration. He treats it like no big deal, just a common tech in this world. He demands to inspect the results, so he hands over the bag. After observing it, he concludes that it's a genuine, high-quality work. Now shaken and curious, he asks who he really is. He says he's only a traveler carrying knowledge. His knowledge of incantation surprises him, since only a few people should be able to create an item bag. He questions what is unfolding before him, but Will and Shal are already on their way. With the item bag secured, he shifts his focus to preparing for the journey ahead. She asks where they're headed next, and he says they need to go to the market for some tools. To her, the market is only an image of crowded transactions. He realizes this because she's never left the forest at all. Most elves hold no interest in the outside world, but for her, every sight feels new and interesting. He smiles, saying that's good to hear. The two set out together, heading into the bustling market district. Rows of stalls stretch under hanging cloth, filled with merchants and customers. For her, the crowded streets were overwhelming. He tells her not to look at people's faces, and she confusedly looks at him. He explains that elves, with their sharper senses, could strain themselves by unconsciously focusing on people's faces. He advises her to avoid eye contact and tune out unnecessary information. She takes his words to heart, repeating them to herself, but in her attempt to follow his advice, she trips and falls to the ground. He notes her clumsiness as she stays on the ground. He helps her up, and she quickly resolves to pay better attention to her steps. Together they press deeper into the market. As the day goes on, they purchase several tools needed for their travels. By the time the sun sets, they have gathered everything required. She marvels at the usefulness of the item bag, impressed by how it could hold so much while remaining light. He explains that this is exactly its purpose, though creating one isn't something just anyone could manage. He declares they're done for the day and are set to leave the next day. When she eagerly asks where they're headed, he only answers that the destination would reveal itself in time. The following day, he secures a horse. The two began their journey, the road stretching out before them. While riding, he instructs her to wrap her body in a faint layer of mana and sustain it. He explains that it's a special exercise meant to help her control her energy with precision. He warns her not to fall from the horse, though. As the day ends, they decide to make camp and rest for the night. Under the moonlit sky, they set up a tent, cook a meal over the fire, and eat together. He reminds her that monsters could attack during the night, so they would take turns keeping watch. If anything appears, they would rely on magic to defend themselves. She's still uncertain of her own ability, but he reassures her of her progress. She nods and hopes for the best. He tells her to rest first, noting that the day's training had surely drained her focus. She agrees, saying it took a lot of focus. Still, he's impressed that she had been able to maintain the exercise for so long. As she retreats into the tent, he remains by the fire on watch. His sharp senses pick up the sound of footsteps approaching the camp. He immediately grows alert, wondering if it's a group of beasts closing in. A group of bandits emerged from the trees. He notes that the footsteps he heard didn't belong to beasts. They brandish their knives and demand his valuables, threatening his life if he refuses. He calmly questions whose life would truly be at risk. They glare at him confusedly. In an instant, he summons Jin. The wind spirit appears as he says they chose the wrong person to mess with. Terrified, they flee in panic, apologizing desperately. He mutters how easy that had been. His body trembles, collapsing under a weight of strain. The spirit warns him that overusing this magic would destroy his magic organ if continued. He acknowledges it and says he must reach their next destination before it's too late. The following day, they arrive at a dense forest blooming with enormous flowers. She marvels at the breathtaking sight, but fear soon replaces her awe as a monstrous insect appears. He covers her mouth instantly before she can make a sound. It eventually drifts away. He reminds her that the beasts in there are powerful, and any loud noise could bring danger. She apologizes for her reaction, but he reassures her it's okay. He says their destination draws near, so they only need to give a little more effort. She clenches her fists and agrees. The Sol Great Forest stretches endlessly, where unique ecosystems thrive. She notices that the humidity here clings to her skin, and even the plants appear strange. He notes that she's starting to look like she's in pain and admits he feels tired too. He says they should rest for a while, and she agrees instantly. They come across small fruits hanging from a branch. He plucks one and hands it to her, telling her it was safe to eat. She takes it gratefully, marveling at the sweetness. He explains that it's a fruit perfect for recovering stamina. He admires his knowledge, impressed by how much he seemed to understand about the world. He brushes it off, claiming his worth lies only in the knowledge he carries. She reflects on how humble he is, even when he's proved to be powerful ever since. He stretches and mentions that they're nearing their destination. She realizes he had been keeping it a mystery all along, but he admits it's intentional. If he had told her earlier, she might have spent the entire journey questioning him. He finally reveals that they're heading toward the ancient ruins. She nods, curious, though not overly surprised. He's surprised she doesn't seem surprised herself. Then he realizes her naivety is because of her sheltered elven life. The ancient ruins are buildings known as the Lost Age. They're scattered across the world, though only a handful have been discovered. Left behind by a flourishing magical civilization, they're said to contain powerful relics and artifacts created long ago, and he wants to obtain one of them called the Sorcerer's Ring. She nods and says it's a precious ruin then. He explains that reaching this place is extremely difficult. She asks why, but he tells her again that the reason would reveal itself in time. They continue forward, and she wonders if ruins could truly exist in such a place. He tells her they lie beyond the waterfall. She questions how they could possibly pass through it. He thinks about how that's the exact reason he made a contract with Jin. The plan is to summon him to carry them into the waterfall's center. Then she'll have to erect a wind barrier to repel the crashing water. She freezes, saying she can't do it, but he reassures her. Although hesitant, she trusts his words. He reminds her of the progress she has made through their training. He tells her to believe what he's saying. Encouraged, she accepts and chooses to believe in his guidance. Grateful for the life he once saved, she vows to devote her strength toward fulfilling his wish. He thanks her warmly, calling her the best companion, before summoning the wind spirit to begin the task. Riding on the back of Jin, they begin to soar through the air. He instructs him to approach the waterfall, and the spirit acknowledges. She nervously cries out as they get closer. Jin beats its wings, carrying them toward the cascade of rushing water. He reminds her of the plan and tells her to be ready to cast the spell at his signal. He instructs the spirit to head straight to the waterfall at his signal too. Jin says he doesn't mind doing it, but questions whether Shell can truly succeed. He reassures him, insisting that she has hidden magical talent. He hesitantly agrees and says he's ready anytime. He checks in one last time, and she answers with resolve that she's ready. With his sharp command, they dive forward. Jin rushes to the center of the waterfall. She casts her spell, summoning a massive wall of wind. She struggles with the immense pressure of water, but she pushes through with determination. Her spell holds, clearing the path through the waterfall as Jin flies them inside. The plan succeeds and he commends her, with Jin even acknowledging her ability. Exhausted, she celebrates her success, thanking Will for believing in her. He laughs, saying he doesn't understand why she's thanking him. They pass through the barrier and finally reach the hidden ruins. He tells her to take in the sight as they've arrived at their true destination. He points towards the ancient ruins ahead of them. The shattered buildings welcome them. She remarks that despite her trust in him, the sight still feels shocking. He tells her that even he himself is surprised. Jin drops them off in front of a door. He thanks the wind spirit. He warns them to be careful since he can't move forward with them. Then, he disappears. She asks if the door is sealed and he confirms it is. She worriedly mutters that they've come this far for it. He reassures her to leave it to him. He studies the door, noting that such a formation would take scholars of this age more than a year to decipher. But unlike the rest, he carries that knowledge. With confidence, he raises his hand toward the seal. Power begins to surge. The air shakes. He channels his energy in a steady flow, unlocking the gate. The door slowly creaks open before them. Her face lights up with joy and relief as she exclaims. He tells her it's time to proceed. She nervously but eagerly agrees, following him inside as the heavy doors loom behind them. They step into the ruins. As they walk deeper, she marvels at his knowledge and power, but he brushes it off casually, saying he's the messenger of God after all. She readily believes him, saying it makes sense. Together, they press onward. She curiously looks around. When they reach the stairs, he calls her firmly, warning her not to stray or she'll lose her way. He recalls that the ruins were once a dungeon, a maze by design. He has the layout committed to memory, so finding the optimal path is within his grasp. She remarks on how vast it is. He cautions that escape would be impossible if she gets lost, so she clings to him. They arrive at a broken chamber rimmed with stones. He says the goal lies ahead, yet another obstacle stands in the way. A hulking stone golem stands before the door. He explains that it will attack any intruder it detects. She balks at the implication of a direct fight. He admits that its strength is considerable, but there is a method to bring it down. She brightens, though he tempers her optimism. He outlines the weak point, pointing at the runes on its chest, and explains that they only need to erase one letter. They would need to keep it from moving in order to get access to its bosom. He says they must fight it head-on for that. He gauges his condition and feels the strain from summoning Jin earlier. He tells her he must rely on her power to fight it. She acknowledges the plan and they stand in silence. His words suddenly register, prompting her to screech and panic. She starts shaking, but he only watches. He then reassures her that he'll take the front, and all she needs to do is strike from behind with her magic. She steadies herself, acknowledging his plan for real this time. He notices how her confidence has grown from their past victories. They prepare themselves. Ahead, the towering golem awakens, detecting him in front. The ground shakes as boulders fall. The golem lunges with frightening speed. He narrowly tracks its movements, shocked by how fast it is. The creature smashes down with force, and he leaps away to dodge. He shouts her name, and she responds instantly. She launches her magic towards it. The strike lands, but it still looms unshaken. She grunts as she sees him struggle. She realizes the spell isn't enough to stall the enemy. She tightens her focus, determined to try something else. Energy swirls as she summons another spell. The force of energy roars forth, colliding with the golem and shaking the battlefield. The creature staggers. He praises her move, a grin crossing his face. He resolves to use the opportunity she created to his advantage. The golem is on its knee. He thinks to himself that her attacks won't be able to deliver the finishing blow, which is why he had her focus on creating an opening instead. He readies himself, knowing that with this chance, he can finish the fight in one strike. He declares the name of his attack, Storm Bomb, and unleashes it with devastating force. The spell tears through the battlefield, a storm of power engulfing the golem. The blast shatters its defenses and sends it crashing down. As the dust settles, he climbs onto the fallen golem's chest. He drives his blade toward the inscription. He mutters that it is over now, erasing the room that sustained it. Red orbs of energy start to leave the golem's body. She nervously asks if they really managed to defeat it. He confirms with a nod, saying they somehow pulled it off. Relieved, she beams with joy. He thanks her, acknowledging that they could only win because of her efforts. But she shakes her head quickly, insisting it was thanks to him that she could give her best. He looks at her with a straight expression at first, then smiles. He says a normal mage wouldn't have been able to meet his expectations. He tells her she should feel proud of herself, reminding her that it's the result of her hard work up until now. She beams brightly and thanks him sincerely. They then approach a grand door, with him pointing out that their objective lies beyond it. Together, they step inside. Within the chamber, a glowing treasure chest awaits. He opens it instantly. He finally obtains the sorcerer's ring, knowing this ring will resolve the issue of timing. He's completed all the preparations needed before a main character's death occurs. She curiously asks if the item he retrieved is indeed the sorcerer's ring, and he confirms it. He demonstrates its all-around power, summoning flames with ease. He thinks ahead about how he can now change what's to come, and even save someone important. She wonders aloud if he's been able to use magic this whole time. He clarifies that what she had seen him use before wasn't ordinary magic, but spirit magic. He admits he has magic power, but lacks the natural talent to use it properly. She seems surprised since she thought he could use magic so effortlessly because he always guided her during her training. He explains further that he has the knowledge, but now he can use magic despite lacking talent. She asks if this means he'll only get stronger, but he says he's far from being satisfied. He then tells her that he needs her to grow stronger as well. Determined, she promises to do her best. She pauses and hopes she can truly do so. Suddenly, she realizes something and panics, wondering aloud how they're supposed to get back. He reassures her not to worry, saying that it should be possible for the two of them to pass through the waterfall together. In a moment, they emerge on the other side. She couldn't believe they actually made it through, and he calmly explains that it's because he can use magic now. By equipping the sorcerer's ring, he's able to use many kinds of magic. The ring is an ancient magical tool that grants the user freedom to wield nearly any spell they know. But then, a dark voice cuts through the moment, demanding to know who they are. Shell freezes, startled, as a hooded figure steps out with staff in hand, questioning their presence. He observes the man's crest and immediately identifies him as part of Lux Magna. Lux Magnet is a dark magic group bent on conquering the world. For now, their scale is small and their true dangers hidden, but in time, they will expand into a massive threat feared by all. In the original work, they were also the central antagonist. He concludes that since he doesn't know this man, he must be a mere underling. The cloaked man stammers in shock and demands to know how they could possibly be aware of it. He answers coolly that he knows many things, including the reason why the man is there. He states that Lux Magna must be after the ancient ruins, seeking the power of the old magical tools. He threatens them after realizing they know too much. He stays calm, saying he never planned to let them go alive anyway. He smirks and confirms it. He smiles and declares that he'll use this encounter as training. The man angrily warns him that he has no idea of his situation. He spins his staff, scoffing that he mocked him to be a training partner. Energy surrounds him as he threatens him for looking down on him. He tells her to step back, protecting her from the danger. The enemy conjures a massive earthen spear to strike. She shouts for him in concern, but he only effortlessly draws his sword. He launches the clay spear towards him. He knows that originally, Will is a character who has strong physical power, but is incapable of using magic. But now, he channels magic through his weapon and unleashes Aqua Sword. The water slices through the attack with ease. Now that he's able to use magic, he can maximize his character's potential. He can finally combine his natural physical prowess with powerful close-range magic. His true potential is beginning to shine. The cloaked mage is shocked that he has just deflected his magic with nothing more than a sword. He smirks, saying he's a newbie himself, and an underling like his enemy is the perfect partner for training. Infuriated, the enemy clicks his tongue and calls out his arrogance. He smirks as he threatens another attack. The ground beneath him starts shaking. The enemy casts a clay prison around him. Massive walls of hardened clay rise, forming a cage. He tells him breaking through is futile, since he'll keep on hardening it. The bars then turn to solid iron. He sneers, mocking that he just used property-changing magic. He acknowledges how unexpected such a skill is for an underling. With his sword, he decides to try using more magic power. With a single swing, he cleaves through the prison as though it were paper. He steps out of it instantly. The mage stares in disbelief, screaming it impossible. He tells him he'll just kill him since he wants to die so badly. He begins channeling a massive amount of energy into his staff. He closes his eyes briefly, sharpening his senses so he can respond from any direction. But when he opens his eyes, he couldn't find the man. He wonders where he is. She calls out to him. She points ahead, saying the person just ran away. He admits he can't feel his presence. From a distance, the man runs away, screaming he can't win against him. He says such people always end up running away. He dismisses him as nothing but an underling once more. She says it all worked out in the end since they're safe. He admits he still wants to train his magic, and she only nervously laughs. He then suggests they go home, and she brightly agrees. As they head back together, she clumsily falls to the ground again. They start walking back. She confusedly asks where he's heading since the city is in the other direction. He notes that she seems to have remembered the road. She's surprised he doesn't remember it. He pats her head, saying she's good at mapping out natural terrain. She flusters at that. She brightly smiles and playfully takes the lead to guide the lost Lord Will. He says he's glad she's offering, but he tells her the way back is actually that way. They walk towards it, but she's still confused since they never went that way. He admits it's a different route, but still fine. She wonders what he means by that. He reflects on ancient magic systems from the old age which allowed means of travel incomprehensible by the current era. It was one of the reasons behind the great magic prosperity, since it was a fast travel method. Just then, a new danger emerges. A giant hell spider appears before them. She screeches at the sight. He notes that it's making its nest right in front of their destination. Then it attacks with sticky webs, prompting him to dodge. From behind, she screams. He sees her trapped against a tree. He reassures her that while the silk is sticky and strong, it's not poisonous. She cries out that it still feels disgusting. He confidently steps up to deal with the monster. He faces the monster head-on. He acknowledges how grotesque it would be. The creature unleashes a torrent of webbing, but he counters with a blazing flame barrier. The spider advances, forcing him into action. He leaps high into the air, preparing his strike. Channeling his strength, he calls forth Dragon Flare, engulfing the battlefield in roaring fire. The spider screeches and burns away, reduced to ashes in the inferno. He lands smoothly, unscathed. He notes that the sorcerer's ring grants him enough power to slay such beasts with ease. She cheers in awe from a distance, calling him incredible. Soon after, they arrive at their destination. He explains that they're in another place of ruins, although this one is not so rare. He says their true purpose remains unknown to people. He tells her it's a place that can transport travelers instantly to another shrine. She reacts in shock at the revelation, hardly believing it. He calmly adds that the shrines can even bridge continents. Her eyes shine with excitement as she realizes this means they don't need to retrace their path back. But she begins wondering why they didn't use the shrine when they first came here. He answers that he couldn't use it before because it requires ancient magic tools to activate. He uses his magic and the shrine suddenly glows. She's startled at its activation. He announces that they will transfer to the shrine near Celica Kingdom's royal capital. He reflects inwardly, determined to interfere in this world's events and ensure the best happy ending now that he has the power. They arrive at the Celica Kingdom's royal capital. He feels relieved and notes that they made it in time. She wonders what he means. He decides it is time to tell her what will unfold next. She listens anxiously. He reveals that beasts will soon attack the kingdom, leaving it on the brink of collapse. She reacts with shock at the thought, and he affirms that it will certainly happen. He adds that the kingdom's prime minister will betray them. He declares that he will stop it, which is the very reason he returned. Once the prime minister betrays the kingdom, Princess Selena is fated to die. But unlike in the original story, he resolves to change this outcome. At that moment, a hooded stranger calls out to him in the street. He turns and asks what it's for. The hooded man recognizes him and smirks. He asks him for his name. He reveals that he was hired by his family to capture him and drag him back home. He realizes it makes sense since he didn't enter the academy. The man demands his surrender, but he refuses. He threatens to use force, and he immediately grabs her hand and urges her to run. He mocks Will, claiming he was someone who failed to enter the academy, but he clarifies that it wasn't that he couldn't enter, it was that he simply didn't want to. He then uses High Leap, carrying her away through the air with ease. Their pursuer is shocked, since he shouldn't be capable of using magic. From above, he calmly states that he can now. The enemy grows desperate and leaps after them. He notices that his father has even gone so far as to hire a first-class mage. He takes the lead in their escape, carrying her on his back, while she's tasked with fending off the pursuer. Their enemy unleashes a massive fire spell. She bravely counters with her own magic, erecting a powerful wind barrier that blocks the attack. His eyes widen at her counter. Impressed by her quick action, he uses the opening to accelerate with incredible speed. He invokes his high-level spell to dash them away from danger. The enemy is left stunned, realizing that Will, who was never supposed to wield magic, now commands even advanced spells. After catching their breath, he declares they're in the clear. She wobbles from the dizzying speed while he apologizes with a chuckle. Internally, however, he remains vigilant, knowing his family wouldn't send just one mage after him. Using brute force to deal with all of them would draw too much attention, so he reminds himself to stay cautious and focus on his true objective. His thoughts shift toward Alan's awakening. In the original story, Alan only unlocked his hidden power after witnessing Princess Selena's death. It will mess the story up if he doesn't awaken, but he wants to choose both of them. As he contemplates how to shape this ideal story, she notices his serious expression and asks if something is wrong. He brushes it off and says it's nothing. He refocuses, reminding himself of his immediate goal to meet Alan. Just then, Alan himself suddenly appears. He calls out Will's name with joy. His eyes widen at the sight of the hero. He wonders how convenient it is to have him appear right before him instantly. She asks if they're acquainted. He confirms, saying that Will had saved him in the past. She stares in awe, but he downplays it and says it's the other way around. He lightheartedly argues that it was because of him that he managed to win. He hums and leaves it settled that way. He chuckles and expresses his happiness at seeing Will again. He then grows serious, telling him he returned specifically to meet him. He looks at him confusedly. He tells him he has something important to discuss with him and asks to speak in a quieter place. At Celica Magic Academy, in Alan's dorm room, the three of them sit down together. He assures it's quiet enough there to talk without worrying about eavesdroppers. Will apologizes for using the room, but he assures him it was nothing. With tea served, he asks about the important matter he wanted to discuss. He remarks that Alan had grown closer to Princess Selena, especially during the Academy's recent magic tournament. This surprises Alan, who wonders how Will knew. He confidently claims he simply knows many things. She jumps in and adds that he had even known about her own forest, saving her when she was about to be sacrificed. He says he doesn't just know about Alan, but the future of the entire kingdom. He explains gravely that soon, the kingdom would be attacked by magical beasts, suffering devastating damage. He jumps from his seat, unable to believe what he's hearing. He confirms that it's the truth. Then, he continues and explains that Princess Selena, who was close to Alan, would lose her life. Shocked, he struggles to process the revelation. He then asks why he's believing him when he could be lying. He says there's no merit for him to lie to him, and that the warning is too important to dismiss. He silently acknowledges how pure and virtuous Alan was truly fitting for a hero. Finally, he asks what they should do to avoid that future. He assures him that if Alan trusts him and they work together, they could change fate. He stands up, asking him if he's willing to work with him. Without hesitation, he agrees and promises to do anything. He thanks him, but Alan says he should be the one thanking him. He notes that the first hurdle is cleared, but the second is Alan's awakening. He hesitates, unsure what his role is supposed to be. He asks if he could hide them there in the meantime. He admits he's part of the nobility, and that his family chased after him. He explains it's because he chose to go on a trip, instead of taking the academy entrance exam. He nods, saying he understands, and allows him to stay in his room. The boy's tone softens as he says he owes Alan one. He then declares they'll start moving tonight, and he asks what he's supposed to do. He lifts a finger, saying he'll tell him once the time comes. Later, they settle inside the Celica Magic Academy battleground. They stand in the center of the arena. He hesitates, asking if they're allowed to use the place without permission. He reassures him, explaining that the Academy guards only patrol during the day. He nervously points out that this means they are doing something bad. He casually agrees but explains that's why they'll do it in a way they won't get caught. He activates magic, setting up a barrier of recognition to conceal them. He looks around, impressed, asking what it is. He explains the barrier prevents them from being seen. He admires his magic, amazed he can use such power. He replies that he learned it just for this moment. He wonders what he means by it, but he tells him it's time to begin. He looks confused, asking what they're beginning. He says there's only one thing to do in a battleground, and that's to fight each other. He shockingly asks why, and he says it's to make him stronger because he is still too weak. He declares that's why he'll train him. He wonders aloud if he's really that weak since he had won the recent magic tournament. This surprises him, prompting him to ask if he truly won, and he confidently confirms it. Internally, Will recalls the original story, where Alan's score should have only placed him at 8th at best. He reveals it was thanks to his earlier advice. He realizes that's how he managed to win the tournament. He says it's why he's extremely grateful for him. Even with such strength and growth, he insists it's still not enough. He says he still lacks the strength to protect what matters. He accepts his word to be the truth. Then he pleads for him to train him. He agrees, saying that's why he came. The torches surrounding the arena light up one by one. As he conjures magic in his hand, he declares the beginning of their duel. Will asks him to come at him, but he gives him the chance to attack first and show his strength first. He confidently accepts his offer. He powers up and launches his attack immediately. His eyes widen at the sheer speed, barely able to react in time. Boosting himself with an enhancement spell, he dodges the holy strike. He notices he avoided exactly as predicted, a faint smile forming. He knows of Alan's compatibility with all types of magic because of his genetics, but light and dark attributes don't mix with other elements, leaving him no choice but to survey the situation first. He stays on the defense since he still doesn't know what attribute Will possesses. As the pressure mounts, he decides it's his turn to respond. He abruptly halts his movement with a divine breaking technique. He jolts in surprise. He shouldn't be able to use such versatile magic yet, which makes him wonder if he's advancing faster than he imagined. He charges again, determined to push forward. With sword in hand, he leaps to lunge at him. He faces it head-on, knowing he's still stronger than him. He conjures up an aqua sword and strikes fiercely. He holds his sword over him. Then he claims the first decisive victory of the exchange. He's shaken up by his strength and questions why he never enrolled in the academy. He answers that only a grim future awaits him there, though he doesn't explain further. He tells him to pick up his sword so they can start again. He agrees eagerly, but asks how long they'll keep doing this. He says it'll go on until he can defeat him. He chuckles and cheerfully agrees, but he quickly realizes that as he is now, he won't be able to win. He tells him to come at him as though his life is on the line. He laughs nervously, asking if it's a joke. With a serious gaze, he declares that he's not joking. He looks at him with wide eyes. He reflects that the first condition to awakening his power is Will being stronger than him. The second is to have him demonstrate a power that can overcome the difference of their strengths. He braces himself, saying he'll fight as if his life depends on it. He encourages him to do so. He starts charging forward at him. Despite his resolve, he's quickly defeated over and over. His strength feels overwhelming, as if he's an entirely different person from before. The gap between them only reminds him how weak he still is. Frustration sets in as he calls himself pathetic. By then, the sun has already risen on their long battle. They have fought for hours, yet no awakening had come to him. Their use of the battleground, along with his physical power, have both reached their limits. He tells him they should stop for now. Even so, he insists he couldn't quit without at least one victory. He reminds him that time is running out and continuing would cause problems, but he pushes for one more fight. He vows that this time, he would win. He notices that his aura has shifted, along with his concentration. He smiles and agrees. He says he'll also be giving it his all. He asks him not to die on him. He then casts a fiery magic and unleashes it towards him. He admits he's still losing in every way, but his desire to win burns stronger than ever. He resolves to push past his limits and draw out even more power. He gathers immense energy, his body glowing with a blue aura. Then he launches a devastating strike downward. Will braces himself, eyes widening at the attack. He stares at the power surrounding him. He pours everything into this one decisive move, screaming with determination as the wave rushes forward. As the blade comes nearer, he considers the possibility that he might actually die. But the tip of the sword stops right before it hits his head. He bends back before Alan, his eyes full of panic. Then the sword clatters to the ground. Exhausted, he clenches his fist. Then he raises his fist into the air and declares his victory. He chuckles and commends him for toppling him at the very last match. He wonders how terrifying a revised protagonist is. He's surprised by his own magic, thinking about how it's been untapped this whole time. His magic is no ordinary enhancement technique. It's a fusion of multiple attributes, bordering on a unique magic of its own. But as the dust settles, the ground reveals massive cracks left behind by the final strike, showing just how dangerous it was. Suddenly, he wavers as he begins to feel his strength and power draining completely. He catches him as he collapses, asking him if he's okay. He doesn't answer. He notes that exhaustion is the natural result of his burst of power. Still, he praises him for creating something so formidable in such a short amount of time. He pats his head, acknowledging his hard work. Inside the academy's dorm, he wakes up. He realizes he's lying in bed and questions where he is. His memories return as he recalls collapsing after his fight with Will. Looking around, he notices him nearby, who comments on his exhausted state. Embarrassed, he apologizes for being a burden. He reassures him, telling him not to worry. He notes that it's still morning and assumes not much time has passed. But he tells him it's not the same day, since he has actually slept through an entire day. He panics at what he hears. He says he had duties to attend yesterday. He worries that he might have disappointed someone by missing it. Trying to comfort himself, he reasons that if he apologizes sincerely, they should understand. He asks what exactly he was supposed to do. Hesitant, he tries to dodge the answer. He starts to wonder what he could be doing during this period. He then guesses correctly that he was supposed to teach Princess Selena magic. He jumps in surprise, demanding to know how he figured it out. Inwardly, he thinks it was for the best that he did meet her yet. Calmly, he admits he just had a feeling and says he'd like to apologize as well. He tells him there's no need since he's done nothing wrong. He says he shares the blame, and that he has to talk to her about the kingdom too. He then agrees, saying she'll definitely cooperate with them. But more than that, she is deeply tied to a coming event, one that could claim her life. Though he cannot tell her directly, he explains that they must save the kingdom to prevent her death. He promises to arrange the meeting, but says they may need to wait a few days. He says it's no problem. Later, the two walk into a forest. They reach a beautiful massive tree. He tells him that she often comes there. He begins to understand why they must wait since meeting a princess isn't so simple. Rushing won't help, so he tells him to wait there leisurely. The forest is the perfect place to meet her, as it's close to the castle. Then he senses something. He says there's actually no need to wait longer. Just then, footsteps approach. Then Princess Selena herself appears. She notices that there are two of them. He instantly walks up to her, apologizing about yesterday. He falls to his knees, apologizing for oversleeping and breaking his promise to her. However, she looks puzzled since she thought the appointment was supposed to be today. Embarrassed, he realizes he misunderstood. She laughs while he apologizes once again for causing a ruckus this time. She then turns to Will. He introduces him as his friend. He politely greets her, stating that he came because he has something vital to discuss. She echoes his words, and he says it's about the kingdom's future. Intrigued, she asks him to explain immediately. He reveals that the kingdom will soon be attacked by beasts, suffering devastation. She admits she finds it hard to believe despite him being Alan's friend. He presses on, proving his credibility by mentioning something she has a clue on. He talks about her growing suspicion that the Prime Minister has changed unnaturally, prompting her to gasp. She asks him how he knew about it. He dodges the question and asks if he's finally caught her interest. Though still cautious, she admits she's willing to listen further. He thanks her and begins to unfold the story, the one about the future that awaits their kingdom. He begins by revealing that the man posing as the Prime Minister is a fake. He's actually a mage in disguise. They listen in shock, struggling to believe such a thing could even be possible. He elaborates that the Prime Minister holds immense authority, making him the perfect vessel to manipulate the kingdom's downfall. In a hypothetical scenario, sending the knights away on expedition leaves the capital defenseless and ripe for attack. She realizes the danger, horrified as she recalls that the knights are indeed away at the moment, but she quickly questions how he could know about such a secret. He brushes off her suspicion again, and instead asks her if she believes him now. After a moment of hesitation, she agrees, deciding to trust him. He speculates grimly that the real Prime Minister might already be dead. Her worry deepens, but she steels herself, declaring they cannot just sit idle any longer. He notes her resolve and feels her conviction to protect the kingdom. She asks if she can truly help saving the kingdom. Alan confirms it confidently, calling him the one who can turn the impossible into reality. She softens, remarking that Will feels a lot like Alan. As they talk, he reflects on how his resolve strengthened after that talk with her. He silently vows he will never let her die. With this, he turns back to planning, ready to take charge of everything that comes next. He promises to save the kingdom. The two raise their fist in agreement. Back in the royal capital, he walks through the back alley. He sets his plan into motion, planning to cause an uproar. He summons Jin. He commands him to unleash destruction upon the city's structures but not harm anyone. Jin soars into the sky and heads towards the center. The crowd starts to look up, asking what they're seeing. Jin unleashes a loud howl. Cries of fear echo through the streets as the crowd runs away. Now that the people are gone, he begins to tear through buildings. With controlled blasts, he strikes through them. He keeps to the shadows, asking him to go to other places as well. The spirit acknowledges it and flies further away. He makes sure his involvement remains a secret. The city's screams grow louder as Jin turns sharply. He continues to wreak havoc, but then falling rubble threatens to crush a boy who failed to escape in time. He dives down, positioning himself to block the collapse. The child cowers in fear, bracing for impact. Instead of death, he finds himself shielded by the spirit. His mother urges him to flee, breaking him from his frozen state. He runs, leaving Jin standing guard until he is safe. Men rush onto the scene, saying they won't let him continue further as they cast their spells. Flames surge from their formation, hurling toward the beast. Jin blocks them with a wind barrier. They stare in disbelief. By the time they recover, the spirit has vanished without a trace. With it gone, they start to wonder what's really happening. In the shadows, he observes with satisfaction, knowing the ruse has succeeded. After the chaos in the city, he can now proceed with his next plan. Reports spread through the city of a beastly attack. A man reports the devastation of the structures to the king. Though no citizens were harmed, the damage dealt to the capital is troubling. His first instinct is to recall the knights from their expedition. The Prime Minister interjects smoothly, warning that such a move could demoralize the knights and cause unrest. He steers the king away from that decision, redirecting their focus on how the beast managed to appear in the first place. He trails in agreement. Then the chamber doors swing open. Princess Selena bursts in. He asks her what's wrong. She announces that she knows the truth behind the beast's appearance. She claims she's an accomplice. The king and his court are left reeling, struggling to comprehend her words. He mutters in disbelief, asking if she's in the right mind. He cuts in, expressing his disdain towards her. She tells them she has a valid reason but demands that the true instigator be brought forth to face judgment. He asks for her to bring them in. She nods and calls on the two boys. They step into the hall with confidence. The Prime Minister recognizes him as the missing son of his family. He confirms it, saying he did it to prepare for this exact moment, where he's able to see through the fake Prime Minister. He stares at him in fury and confusion. Guards move in alarm, questioning what he means, but he stands his ground with resolve. The king insists that he will be allowed to speak since the princess is also involved. The guard retreats in command. The Prime Minister steps forward with cold confidence, angered at being called an imposter. He threatens him, warning that such an accusation could cost an imprisonment. Unfazed, he smirks and says he doesn't mind. She looks on in worry, her thoughts racing if Will can truly pull this off. Raising his hand, he promises proof that he's the real perpetrator. He summons Jin in front of them. As he appears, he checks on his wound, but he says it's no problem. Murmurs spread quickly, the soldiers pointing at the very creature that terrorized the capital. He narrows his eyes, demanding to know his reason for attacking his own city. He calmly explains that it was the only way to draw out this meeting and expose the deception. Addressing the entire court, he makes clear that everyone will serve as witnesses to the truth. He confirms if he's truly the one behind the attack. He admits it was a harsh method, but he says the Prime Minister is plotting something far worse. The king presses again, seeking clarity, while Will admits the destruction was a harsh method. He scoffs at the accusation and demands proof of such claims. His gaze sharpens as he reveals to have one. He raises his hand once more, magic pulsing at his fingertips. He points it towards him and smoke starts to surround him. In an instant, the glamour shatters and reveals his true form. The crowd gasps in shock, their faces filled with disbelief. Even the king stares wide-eyed. She watches in awe, relieved that events are unfolding exactly as Will predicted. The imposter snarls, demanding to know how he could possibly wield the spell that exposed him. He meets his glare with calm defiance, pointing out how odd it must seem to possess knowledge exclusive to Lux Magna. He recoils, suspecting him of once being part of their secret organization, but he denies it. The king leans forward, demanding an explanation. He slouches, realizing there's no longer any point in hiding now that he's been exposed. His eyes glare as he admits he was here to pave the way for Lux Magna to take over the kingdom. He listens grimly, shaken to hear how close the kingdom came to being overtaken. Will asks him if he's still planning to continue his plans. He stiffens, caught off guard by the remark. He then lays bare the truth that he knows he intends to kill everyone present. His lips twist into a smile, vowing to slaughter the room to preserve his plan. Guards immediately charge forward at the king's command to seize him, but he immediately leaps to the air. He unleashes an attack, calling it the death dance. In an instant, the soldiers fall, collapsing one after another. His face pales in horror, realizing his knights were defeated in the blink of an eye. Will calls onto Alan as they ready themselves. He declares that nothing will stand in his way once he eliminates them. He smirks, confident that the enemy's schemes cannot overshadow his own story. Surprised, he demands to know what he meant by that. He warns him that before the battle even begins, defeat is already inevitable. He laughs off their words, scoffing at the idea of losing. He says he's the leader of the feared assassination squad. The king mutters in disbelief that such a group truly exists. The imposter boasts that his squad operates from the shadows, willing to use any means to achieve their goals. With a twisted grin, he adds that erasing all witnesses is simply part of their work. Selena and the king tense up, fear flashing across their faces. He admits he already knew this truth, yet still chose to challenge the man openly. He narrows his eyes, preparing to strike. He mocks him, saying he hopes he's not all talk. Darkness erupts around him as he leaps into the air, casting his deadly technique. His attacks unleash at him. With flames, he slices through them with ease. He acknowledges Will's sharp eyes. He brushes it off, saying his attack speed isn't even posing to be a problem. He rushes forward, promising to display true power through a dangerous spell. Darkness engulfs the battlefield as his spell activates. He notes quietly that the enemy finally unleashed his signature move. The king panics as vision is lost, realizing the battlefield is now under the villain's control. Hidden in the dark, he assesses his next move. He knows that Will is capable since he blocked his death dance. He notes Alan's presence, seeing him as a potential problem. But still, he sneers with confidence, certain no one will escape his grip inside the darkness. With cruel focus, he decides to target her first. He lunges toward her with his dagger, but Alan intercepts at the last moment, bursting forth with golden lightning to protect her. The clash leaves him shocked. As Alan grits his teeth, he instantly crashes onto the wall. He watches the shadows fade, relieved the darkness has vanished. He concludes that they've successfully prevented the princess' death. He demands to know how his movements were seen through and even countered. He explains it's because he already understands his patterns. He reinforces this, saying it's simple once their tricks are exposed. He elaborates that magic and movement can be tracked even without sight. He reminds him again that his speed poses no threat. He laughs bitterly, admitting it's the first time he's been humiliated this way. But his rage flares, vowing to unleash his full power to slaughter them. He steps forward with determination, declaring he'll be the one to bring him down. He sneers, daring him to try. The ground trembles as he summons a massive forbidden spell. He boasts that it's a forbidden ultimate magic, impossible to withstand. He braces himself, overwhelmed by its power, but confident he can still overcome it. With resolve, he recalls the strength he's drawn upon before and prepares to unleash it again. He roars that this will be the end, casting the devastating spell. A blinding surge of destructive energy fills the space, but he emerges with light and summons his own immense power. He slashes through the enemy's spell, redirecting its destructive force outside the castle, where it exploded harmlessly. He looks up at the large crack on the ceiling. He stares at it in disbelief. He steps forward, saying there's no choice for him but to surrender. He scoffs and asks him who in the right mind would do such a thing. Defeated and desperate, he tries to make a run for it. He attempts to flee through the window, laughing as he goes. From behind, he's blasted by a surprise spell. He screams as he feels the magic burn towards him. Outside, Shell is standing guard. She furiously glares at him. He collapses back to the ground. He says he's warned him that they're going to hopelessly defeat him. He smirks, saying he's been dancing in the palm of his hand all this time. Shell zooms through the window and falls clumsily. She rushes in, saying everything unfolded like he said. Their enemy trembles in disbelief, questioning how his plan fell apart. His thoughts turn bitter, blaming him entirely for his failure. He seethes with rage, vowing not to lose, even if it means using an item recklessly. On the ground, he prepares one last desperate attempt. He senses it immediately. He grabs his hand and takes what's in it. With cold eyes, he denies him the chance to use it. He wanted to use a cursed bell capable of summoning beasts. It's the relic that caused great calamity in the original timeline. Though Alan might be able to handle the disaster, he crushes it in his hand just in case. With it gone, he declares the fight finished. Alan cheers, celebrating their victory and crediting Will as the savior of the kingdom. He deflects the praise, reminding him that he's the hero. Surprised, he echoes his words. He insists they couldn't have won without him and emphasizes that the kingdom was saved because Alan was by their side. He says it's still thanks to him he was able to get stronger, but he insists he would have gotten there regardless. Mentally, he says there might have been sacrifices needed if it were the case. The princess joins them, smiling warmly as she calls them both humble. She acknowledges that they both saved the kingdom and turns to her father for confirmation. He nods, admitting that without them, the kingdom would have surely fallen. He expressed his gratitude, bowing his head to the heroes who had preserved his kingdom. The crowd starts to fall to their knees in the same respect and gratitude. Alan cheers at the fact that they're being thanked by the king. The group smiles and agrees. Later in the night, he stands atop the fortress. He gazes out, reflecting that he managed to prevent disaster from reaching the kingdom and save Selena's life. From this, he affirms that he can truly change the world. In this world of endless battles, misfortune once defined the story, but not anymore. He vows to surpass even the original protagonist and become the strongest existence in this world. If he becomes powerful enough, he can solve everything. That might be the ultimate reason for his transmigration. Just then, a voice calls out to him. She tells him she's been looking for him, wondering why he's not asleep yet. He tells her he was just getting air, the excitement of saving the kingdom still lingering. She says she feels the same, giggling about the reward they seem to be getting. But he shuts her down quickly when he says he won't be accepting it. She exclaims in disbelief. She protests dramatically, unable to understand why he refused. He explains that if he truly becomes a hero, the rewards waiting for him will be immense anyway. While a reward would indeed be tempting, he cannot allow himself to grow complacent at his current level of strength. As they walk back home, he decides to send the reward to his household as a gesture of apology for leaving on his own. Soon after, the pair sets out again. He says he refuses to waste even a moment since they have a lot to do. Along the way, they unexpectedly cross paths with a hooded man. He immediately recognizes him as the mage once hired by his father. He asks if he intends to capture him again. To his surprise, he denies it, claiming he has no such intentions anymore. With a mocking grin, he reveals that he's to be disowned by his family. He responds with indifference, calling it unfortunate. He clarifies that the true misfortune lies with the family itself, not him. He pauses and asks him what he means. From behind, a group of knights rush in, chasing after him. Realizing they've been discovered to have sneaked out, they make a swift escape. The man mutters about his strangeness, even being hunted by the knights. He asks one of the knights what exactly he did. He tells him that he saved the kingdom. Shock hits him as he mutters in confusion. The knight praises his achievements, noting how rare it is to be recognized as a hero at such a young age. He forces a laugh, his face twisting as he struggles to process what he just heard. Meanwhile, she asks what his next plan is as they fly above the rooftops. He explains that they need to establish a base, which will allow him to prepare for further growth. Having a base will give him new opportunities to strengthen himself. They finally arrive at their destination, the labyrinth city called Friar. She marvels at the number of adventurers gathered, far more than in previous towns. He explains that the city thrives because of the dungeon below, drawing countless adventurers. She praises his knowledge, asking if he chose this place for its proximity to the dungeon. He affirms her guess, noting that Friar's underground maze is unmatched. She then turns to the topic of their new house, looking a bit concerned. Standing before the old building, she points out how worn out it looks. He acknowledges it but says it was the only property that was both cheap and spacious. As they enter, the door falls apart. Inside, she remarks how shaggy the place looks. He reassures her that they can fix it. He says it should be possible with the help of magic, and she perks up at the thought. Then, he prepares to do it. Kneeling on the ground, he begins to draw a magic circle. With space-time magic, he explains, they can restore it to its original state. Energy surges as he chants the spell. The structure begins to transform, the walls and ceiling repairing themselves. She watches amazed as the house looks completely renewed before her eyes. Then he falls to the ground, admitting he feels sick. He says space-time magic consumes tremendous energy and drains him completely. Although the house itself is good as new, it still remains dirty and dusty. She panics at first, but then gathers herself, promising to handle things while he rests. He smiles faintly and entrusts her with the task. She vows to do her best for his sake and to honor his effort. As she carries a bucket and a broom, she determinedly starts cleaning. A new day dawns outside their house. He awakens on a bed and realizes he's slept for a long time. He looks at Shell, who's sleeping beside him. He realizes she must have carried him to bed. He thanks her quietly while she's still asleep. He steps off the bed, eager to see how the house looks now. Inspecting the house, he notices how clean it is now, impressed by her effort. He concludes the place will serve well as their base. He then thinks about their next goal, to explore the dungeon for rare resources. He notes how it's the perfect place to make use of his knowledge. His aim is to craft powerful tools and gain enough strength to surpass even Alan. Finally, she wakes up, and he greets her warmly. He acknowledges how spotless the house looks. She smiles and thanks him warmly. He apologizes for rushing her, but says they need to head out. She yawns and asks where they're going. He explains that when it comes to dungeons, the first destination is obviously the Adventurers Guild. Inside the guild, a receptionist greets them and confirms their registrations are complete. They're handed guild cards, with a warning to be careful not to lose them. He thanks her and acknowledges the advice. She offers a training course for new adventurers. She gets excited at the thought, thinking it would be good since she knows little about adventuring. But to her surprise and disappointment, he declines, saying they won't need it. He already knows more than what the course could teach, so it would be a waste of time. He asks her what's wrong, and she admits she doesn't know anything about adventurers, so she thought it might help to enroll. He reassures her, saying experience is the best teacher. Still nervous, she agrees and asks about their next step. He says they have plenty to do, but for now their top priority is raising their ranks. He explains that starting from F rank, privileges and freedom increase as they climb higher, and he sets his goal of reaching A rank as soon as possible. She recalls Dominic was a B rank adventurer, so he could easily reach A rank in that case. He tells her that he intends to make her an A rank adventurer as well. She points to herself and asks if he means her. He says if Dominic was able to do it, then she surely could do it too. Despite her protests, he believes it will be possible. As they're walking away, they notice a commotion in the guild. She asks if they're arguing and he says it seems like it. He says it's a common occurrence and invites her to check it out, A red-haired girl confronts a group of adventurers. She demands to know why the iron blaster materials were sold off when they were supposed to be hers. The man answers calmly, saying the materials had the highest value among their spoils, and he gave her fair compensation. She insists that the iron blaster couldn't have been taken down without her knowledge. Watching from the crowd, he realizes she's the labyrinth chef Carla. He notes how fortunate it is to meet her under these circumstances. She continues to argue, refusing money and stating she wanted the materials themselves for her monster cuisine research. The party mocks her, calling her idea foolish, saying no one would want to eat such things. They dismiss her as a nuisance, telling her to leave if she can't follow their decision. Shocked and angered, she asks him what he just said. They make it clear that if she won't agree, she's no longer welcome in their party. Frustration boils over her. Then she declares she won't join any other party either. Her fury drives her to storm out, slamming the door behind her as she leaves. She notes her fiery temper, while he reflects that it only shows her passion. He then decides they should catch up. She's confused, but he makes it clear they'll chase after that very woman. She questions if that's really okay, worried they might only make things worse. He reassures her to leave things to him. As the sun sets, they arrive at a bar. He quickly spots her sitting alone with a drink. They approach her table, pointing out the scene she caused earlier. She immediately questions their intent and asks what they want. He brings up her earlier mention of monster cuisine and says he wants to know more. She brushes them off at first, not wanting to talk. He sits down anyway, insisting he'll carry the conversation instead. He begins explaining that unlike animals, monsters generate magic crystals within their bodies. Their flesh, infused with magic, is normally poisonous to humans, making it unsuitable as food. She scoffs at the explanation as common knowledge, while Shao mentally admits she never knew it. He leans in, pointing out that she must know a way to remove the magic from monster flesh. His words catch her off guard. He explains that if the magic within monster flesh is removed, its toxic nature disappears, and the meat can be preserved while keeping its flavor. She questions how he possesses such knowledge. He brushes it off, claiming he only knows a little. She giggles and decides to share her own knowledge. He knows that her dishes can grant physical enhancements. She's also destined to meet Alan in 3 years. There shouldn't be any issue if he gains her as an ally. He internally resolves to have her help him grow stronger. At the table, she begins explaining that removing magic from monster meat is a difficult process. She describes how one must locate and eliminate the meridian points of magical flow with perfect accuracy. He confirms this calmly. She's surprised, realizing he already knew, though he admits he cannot perform the process himself. He elaborates, saying such skill requires immense battle experience and a rare ability to sense magic. Impressed, she acknowledges that he's the only one who's ever understood this, but presses him on how he knows. He claims that long ago, he was saved by her master. Shocked, she demands to know if he truly met him. He recounts a moment when, on the verge of death, her master gave him monster meat. He also mentioned her name to him. She can't help but call her master in awe. Internally, he admits he fabricated the story, but reasons it's the best way to build trust and form a connection with her. He tells her straightforwardly that he wants to try that unique monster dish again. He emphasizes that he's not just after the monster meat itself, he specifically wants to taste the dish Carla would prepare. Extending his hand with confidence, he offers all the monster meat they acquired to her, proposing she join their party to challenge the dungeon together. She pauses, visibly moved, before agreeing enthusiastically to his offer. She watches in awe at how easily he recruited someone so formidable. She marvels at how impressive he is. To celebrate the new party formation, she orders more drinks. She asks to know more about her new companions. She listens and learns that Shell had once been saved by him, which led her to dedicate herself to following him. She declares proudly that her very life now belongs to Will, all thanks to that day. She reacts warmly, thinking he must be a kind person, though he modestly disagrees. He admits he simply wouldn't hesitate to help someone in need, brushing it off as nothing noble. She laughs, finding his attitude unusual but admirable. Curious, she asks what brought them here. He says the dungeon's treasures would be one of the reasons, but his main reason is his desire to grow stronger. Hearing this, she connects it with his knowledge of monster meat's effects. She becomes increasingly impressed, promising to give her all in helping them become stronger. They toast once again, sealing their bond as new comrades. The next day arrives with Carla barging into their base. She's shocked and flabbergasted to learn that they're F rank. She laughs, saying they only registered as adventurers yesterday, but he reassures her they'll quickly rank up. She starts to doubt if she picked the right team to join. Suddenly, she notices a group approaching. Her mood shifts as she recognizes them. Her old party comes to mock her past claim of never joining another party. She angrily shuts them down, saying it's her business. The big man casually asks what rank their group is. He bluntly answers that they're F rank. The three men burst into cruel laughter, ridiculing them for being weak and mocking Carla for teaming with noobs. She fumes, frustrated that her former party still manages to irritate her. He calmly steps forward with a confident smile, saying he has a proposal. The brutes pause, confused by his boldness. He suggests using the official adventurer duel system to settle things once and for all. She calls out to him in concern, They look at him, baffled at the idea of an F-rank challenging them. His eyes sharpen, declaring he won't let insults slide. The men accept the duel with arrogant confidence. He smirks inwardly, knowing they've fallen into his plan. He vows to defeat them and climb the ranks in one decisive move. They settle in a coliseum-like arena where countless adventurers gather. Within its walls, a system of dueling exists to settle disputes and showcase strength. Duels are also a form of entertainment for the masses. They smugly declare that if they win, they'll take Shal as their prize. She panics in shock, frightened by the threat. She clings to him in fear. He says because of Carla their party is short of a member and promises to work her like a slave. She squeals and trembles again. She fumes at their arrogance, while Will calmly accepts the duel on behalf of his party. He raises the stakes and says that if they win, the enemy team will lose their adventurer ranks altogether. The opposing side, confident in their superiority, agrees readily. She worries aloud, knowing the risk of losing Shal. He reassures them with steady confidence, saying defeat isn't an option since they only need a single win to claim victory. She studies him, questioning where his confidence truly comes from. He turns to Shal, asking if she could even imagine him losing. She blushes and quickly admits she can't picture it at all. Carla, however, is stunned, wondering if he's really as strong as he seems. He knows he has a long way to go, but their opponent right now wouldn't pose a threat to him. She reacts in surprise, unsure of what he means. He adds that he won't even need to step in for this fight, leaving Shal confused. They ask what he's talking about, but he only hints they'll find out soon. The opponent grows impatient, asking who will face him. She nervously looks to him for direction and he says she's the one who will fight. She freezes, startled that she was chosen. Carla worries whether she's ready as she watches the trembling elf girl. He calmly assures her he trusts her ability. She looks back at him. Though nervous, she accepts his command and prepares herself. He tells her to seize the initiative and show her magic, giving her confidence. She steadies herself and charges into the fight. He mocks the idea of fighting a little elf girl, claiming he might accidentally go too far. She clenches her fists, determined to win. Spectators laugh among themselves, convinced the C-rank adventurer will win. The others dismiss their party as inexperienced, but he sees through it, knowing her lack of confidence hides her true strength. The duel then begins. Her opponent rushes in confidently, ready to land the first blow. But she recalls his instructions to take the initiative and prepares her magic. She unleashes a powerful wind spell, catching her opponent completely off guard. The overwhelming blast sends him flying violently across the arena. The force smashes him into a wall, knocking him out instantly. The crowd gasps in shock, stunned at how quickly the fight ended. She stands nervously, still processing her own strength. Her enemy's comrades are dumbfounded, unable to believe what they just saw. From the sidelines, she's impressed by her hidden potential. He remarks that she's a natural genius, her growth astonishing in such a short time. With the first match settled, he calls for the next opponent to step forward, but the remaining enemies panic and admit defeat instantly. He laughs at how abruptly the duel ended. As she walks back to them, she timidly asks if she really won. They congratulate her warmly, praising her display of power. She blushes shyly, hardly believing her own accomplishment. Her former comrades sulk in defeat, humiliated. Meanwhile, he announces with satisfaction that their group has been promoted to C rank. They can now take on dungeon challenges without delay. He feels confident that their team can progress toward their ultimate goal of finding a hidden item. The dungeon is described as the largest labyrinth in the world, stretching across 100 floors. Every 10 floors, there are different themed regions such as grassy plains, forests, underwater zones, and fiery volcanic areas. The furthest anyone has managed to go was only as deep as the 70th floor. The party arrives in an area that strangely looks like open sky despite being underground. She marvels at the sight, finding it unbelievable that the dungeon holds such vast illusions. He explains that the dungeon was crafted by an ancient civilization and hides powerful relics made with advanced technology. Her eyes sparkle at the thought of finding rare and special items. However, he warns that while people dream of these treasures, no one has ever truly uncovered them. He then declares that their group will be the one to break that record. She looks skeptical but listens as he explains that obtaining the items comes with a strict condition. The condition is that not a single monster in the dungeon can be slain. He insists it's critical for success. She encourages Carla to do her best, rallying their determination. He then asks her if she can use a special wind spell to boost their speed. She confirms she can, and he instructs the team to rely on that magic to sprint through the dungeon without engaging in battle. She activates the spell and propels them forward at incredible speed. She quickly notices that they're moving much faster than her. She calls out in frustration, demanding they slow down. She yells, insisting there's no way this is the same spell because the speed gap is far too great. He realizes that she's still weak at this point of the story. He apologizes and explains that since he and Shal are skilled in magic, their speed is naturally higher. He reassures her they'll adjust to her pace so she doesn't overexert herself. Exhausted but curious, she demands to know what kind of training they'd gone through. She demands to know it since she doesn't want to get left behind. He smiles and calmly agrees. She realizes he's taken on another apprentice, which makes her Carla's senior. She smirks confidently to herself while the others look at her puzzled. They continue running swiftly through the dungeon's forest area. He halts suddenly, telling the others to stop as well. They gratefully take the chance to catch their breath, relieved by the break. Surrounded by mystical flowers and butterflies, he crouches down and examines a glowing plant. From behind, Shao asks what exactly he's found. He says it's a fairy flower. He explains that the flower's fragrance draws butterflies, and soon the air fills with their fluttering wings. Holding the blossoms, he notes their calming effect, saying they're valued as ingredients for perfumes. His students react differently. One teases him for sounding delicate, while the other admires his knowledge. He carefully stores the flowers, explaining they're not just pretty but considered important finds. He pulls out his item bag, surprising Carla. She's shocked he has such a rare item, asking how he even got it. He states he crafted it himself, shocking her further. Shao says he's capable of anything, while she quietly reflects that must be why she trusts him so much. With the fairy flowers safely packed away, he tells them it's time to move on. His students groan, wishing the break had lasted longer, but he reassures them they can rest if needed. He tells them to stay put while he scouts around the area. After recovering their strength, the group pushes forward again. They encountered no real threats on their way down, allowing them to reach deeper safely. Suddenly, she gasps in awe, pointing out something unbelievable ahead. Before them towers an enormous, ancient tree, stretching impossibly high. The sheer scale of it leaves her stunned since it's far larger than anything she imagined. He explains that avoiding combat up until now was intentional because their true goal had been reaching this tree's summit. She snaps at him, calling him crazy, while she demands to know what he expects to find. He answers that the Sky Temple lies above. She laughs at how ridiculous it sounds. She even turns to Shao for support, but she affirms that if he says so, then it must be true. Her disbelief grows, as even if it does exist, there's no way for them to reach it. He simply responds by calling forth a wind spirit. Her eyes widen, asking if he can use summoning magic. He nods and explains that they'll ride this spirit all the way to the summit. He speaks fluently to Jin, giving instructions, which further frustrates her. She explains that he can even speak the ancient tongue of spirits. He declares that they're about to go up to the Sky Temple. Jin soars upward as they ride on his back. Suddenly, a floating shark appears in the skies above. She panics at its presence, noting how it shouldn't even appear in this area. He calmly remarks that he had expected this encounter. He instructs Jin to speed them through without defeating the beast. The enormous shark-like monster lunges with its jaws wide open. They barely break through, passing by without delivering a fatal blow. Relief spreads as they realize they managed to avoid the fight. At their pace, he says they'll soon reach their destination. They streak past the clouds, rushing across the sky with blinding speed. Jin then stops midair. Excitement stirs as they recognize it. The Sky Temple stands before them in undeniable reality. They land softly. He thanks the spirit and he simply assures him he will always be available when needed. Awe fills their voices as they take in the mystical place. She turns to him, curious about how he knew of this place. He brushes it off, saying he simply knows more than most. Still unconvinced, she softens and says she won't pry if he doesn't want to explain further. He thanks her for her understanding. She smiles, crediting her master who taught her well. He smiles at that. He then points forward, reminding them their goal lies directly ahead. They step into the Sky Temple. He starts to assess the place. She pauses and turns to him in confusion when he starts touching the walls out of nowhere. He focuses, saying he's looking for a hidden room. He knocks his hand against the wall. Finding the spot, he declares that the entrance must be here. He channels magic into his palm, releasing a surge of light. The wall trembles as a hidden passage opens before him. The two girls behind him gape in shock, Carla muttering she's already used to his constant surprises. Together, the three of them enter. Inside, they discover a room filled with tools, bottles, and equipment. She notices how it looks a lot like a workshop. He explains that this is where they'll create the perfume they need. The girls are baffled at the idea of making perfume, but he insists it's necessary. She points out that making perfume usually takes a long time. He confirms it normally would, but with magic, the process can be shortened to even an hour. They're shocked and impressed by how fast that sounds. He begins the process, placing the flowers and summoning magic. He extracts their essence, droplets glowing with power. He explains how he used magic to pull out the flower's essence. Then he mixed it with ethanol to preserve it. Adding water dilutes the alcohol, bringing out the fragrance of the fairy flowers. They watch in awe while he calmly bottles the perfume. She notes that he didn't even use the workshop's tools, and he says it would have taken a month if he did. He declares that all their preparations are soon to be complete. Holding the perfume, he announces that it's done. They comment on how fast that seemed. He praises Carla for getting used to how they work and urges them to move on. They start to walk deeper through the temple. He explains they're close to the final room now. They arrive before a magnificent angelic statue surrounded by light and butterflies. They're stunned by the breathtaking beauty of the place. Suddenly, brilliant light floods the chamber as another figure reveals itself. A statue-like monster emerges. The girls are alarmed at its appearance, but he firmly tells them not to provoke it. The creature speaks, questioning them of defiling the labyrinth. He calmly insists they haven't defiled anything and that they've only come as visitors. He asks it to recognize their intentions. It studies them, then dissolves into light. They wonder aloud what just happened. He explains if they had fought any monsters before, the Guardian would have attacked. Shell pieces together the reasoning, though Carla is baffled by the logic. He smirks, saying it's simply how the story unfolds. With the path now open, he prepares to make their offering. The perfume they crafted is placed at the altar. The statue begins to react, glowing with divine energy. They watch in silence and anticipation. But after a moment, he notes that nothing else seems to happen. But then Shell points and notices that the offering has vanished. Suddenly, a mischievous girl pops out, startling her with a loud scare. The girl bursts into laughter and calls her funny. Carla wonders when she appeared, while Shell clutches her chest, saying her heart nearly stopped. He addresses her calmly, acknowledging her as the goddess of labyrinths known for pranks. She turns to him, saying she doesn't know him, but notes that he managed to solve the offering puzzle. He explains that hints about the required offering were hidden in the dungeon, and he had already deduced the answer. She admires his brilliance, while she stares at him in disbelief, still unsure who he really is. The goddess claps in delight, impressed with his cleverness, and decides to inspect the perfume. She elegantly tests the fragrance, acknowledging that though the quality isn't the highest, it clearly carries the scent of the fairy flowers. From behind, the two girls whisper about how peculiar the goddess seems to be. She turns to him, thanking him for the offering, and asks his name. He introduces himself as Will. She smiles brightly, thanking him by name, and declares she will bestow a gift as gratitude. She gives him the chemist's brush, a tool forged by a master alchemist. He accepts it, saying he intends to conquer the dungeon from the very beginning. She's shocked at his ambition, calling it impossible for anyone, no matter how strong. He reassures them it won't happen overnight, but that they will reach it eventually. She lightheartedly laughs at his confidence, eager to see him struggle against the puzzles she had designed. Mentally, he thinks about how he was the one who created those very puzzles. She tries to keep him longer, but he prepares to leave, saying their time there is finished. He only teases that he'll consider it if she gives more token of gratitude, making her relent. He calls his companions to move on, and together they leave the temple. The goddess watches them go, surprised that he truly walked away. Calling him a strange and fascinating human, she decides to keep watching over him from afar whenever he enters the dungeon, since she doesn't want him to die after all. With Jin's help, they leave the Sky Temple. Just as they dive down, divine light spills over him. His eyes widen as he realizes he has received the goddess's blessing. The unexpected grace leaves him confused, especially after the cold way she had treated him earlier. Gaining her blessing just boosted his plans even further. Still, he has to get in touch with the legendary blacksmith first. The group celebrates their first successful dungeon exploration with drinks at a tavern. She raises her mug, saying she made the right choice joining his party, thrilled at all the sights and experiences. He says what they've seen is only the beginning and assures her of more in the future. She beams, saying she's looking forward to it. She chimes in, asking about the item they acquired. He pulls out the brush, explaining it's an ancient magic tool. She repeats the words in surprise, noting it was gifted by a god. He decides to delay explaining its abilities until later. He notes they'll likely use the brush for his plans tomorrow. The next day, the group walks into the bustling blacksmith town. He says there should be plenty of opportunities to use the item there. She wonders aloud if he plans to sell it, but he dismisses the idea. He says few could grasp its true worth anyway, since it would look like worthless junk. He then announces they've reached their destination. They realize they've arrived at the Dragon Forge. Carla reacts with awe, knowing it's where the best smiths gather. She praises his choice, convinced this was his intention. He points to a small, rundown smithy nearby and says that's what he means. The girls stare at it in disbelief, calling it shabby. She questions what they could possibly want there. An old man appears, telling her that the workshop might look shabby now, but it was once prosperous. At that moment, he makes an inappropriate move. She angrily shouts at him and kicks him away. He realizes too late that he should have warned her about him. The man she just attacked is no ordinary blacksmith, but the legendary craftsman Grum. She continues to rage, declaring she must punish him, while Shell tries to calm her down. He steps in and orders her to settle down, admitting that he has business with the old man. He approaches Grum and checks if he's alright. He apologizes, claiming his hand moved without thinking. She isn't convinced and screams at him, still seething with anger. Surprised, he asks how he knows his name. He answers plainly that he already knows about him. After some thought, he accepts this explanation and acknowledges the truth. He tells them to follow him inside so they can continue their discussion. Inside the shop, they notice that the place is filled with nothing but rusty old weapons. With the Dragon Forge dominating the market, nobody bothers with his rundown shop anymore. He admits he doesn't care about business, satisfied so long as he can drink every day. He turns to him and asks what he's here for. He steps forward and makes his request, asking the old smith for a true masterpiece weapon. He leans in, asking for a loot exchange, which makes Carla snap in anger. Shell also expresses her concern, but he tells them he's just joking. He knows he has no intention of crafting for anyone right now. He pauses, then admits the boy sees through him too well. She punches him for lying. He apologizes, saying he got carried away. He explains that he's refusing to forge because he doesn't want his blades in the hands of the unworthy. He finally leans forward, intrigued at how much he knows. He insists he really wants the weapon and wants to prove his worth to him. He decides to test him, leading them into a room. They follow him to a block of steel sitting in the middle of the room. He sets down a sword, telling him to prove himself by cutting through it. She protests, calling it impossible, but he accepts without hesitation. She turns to him in confusion. He smiles at them, saying the time has come to use the item. With it, he grants the sword added sharpness and enhanced slash. He grips the sword in his hand. Then he strikes in a swift motion. Everyone stares in shock, their eyes wide with disbelief. He's utterly stunned, unable to comprehend what just happened. He states that he completed the task as asked. He reminds the blacksmith of his promise to forge a weapon. The dust clears, revealing the steel block perfectly sliced in half. They can hardly believe what they're seeing. He explains that the brush is a magical tool, capable of granting effects to items. Normally, a sword can only bear one magical effect, but with the brush, multiple effects can be layered onto a weapon. She realizes that this means the weapon's power can be doubled. They both acknowledge how overpowered such an item truly is. He reflects that the brush is indeed absurd since it breaks balance. He thinks to himself that perhaps now, with this tool, he can finally stand on equal footing with Alan. He notes how he used granting magic to cut through the steel. He confirms, admitting that without magic, the task would have been impossible, even though Alan will be able to do it in a few years. He admits he's more impressed by the speed and precision of the technique. He acknowledges the boy as a first-rate grantor, and possibly even a skilled adventurer. He asks if that means he'll forge a weapon for him. With his eyes firm, he immediately refuses. The girls protest, reminding him of his earlier promise. He dismisses them, saying strong adventurers can be found everywhere, but he'll only craft for someone truly exceptional. He reflects that what he did wasn't enough to prove his worth. She shouts in frustration, but he calms her. He says he has his reasons and admits he can't force someone to forge a weapon against their will. She defeatedly retreats. He relents slightly, offering help in any other way, though not with weapon forging. He thanks him sincerely, satisfied for now. Internally, he notes this was all just the first step to building trust. His real goal is to have him owe a favor so he can forge for him next time. Determined, he sets out to do anything to have him craft a weapon for him, since his plans rely on it. The day comes to an end, and Grum tells them it's time to close the store. He warns them to head straight home since night has been dangerous in the city lately. He thanks him for the advice. Outside, they walk back home together. Shell remarks that he must be disappointed. She questions why he bothers with him when the Dragon Forge is right next door. He explains that while it seems logical, she underestimates Grum. She scoffs as he suggests waiting a while since they might see something interesting. Night falls upon them. She grows impatient, wondering what they're even waiting for. He tells her to look ahead. The Dragon Forge's owner, Jillian, emerges. To their surprise, he heads straight into Grum's shop. Through the window, they see the two men laughing together. He reveals that he's actually Grum's apprentice. She shouts in disbelief. The pieces fall into place for her. Will confirms it with a knowing look. She claps her hand and says it's time to head home as she reminds them of the earlier warning. Carla asks if she's scared. She nervously admits she's terrified of being out at night. He asks if the two of them can return home on their own, saying he has something else to take care of. They both agree, telling him they'll wait for him later at their usual spot. He reassures them he'll join them once he's finished. Meanwhile, Jillian leaves Grum's store. He warns him to be cautious on the way back. Walking through the quiet streets, he notices someone suspicious waiting in the shadows. He sees a cloaked figure ahead of him. He wonders if they had been standing there just for him. The stranger suddenly reveals herself, an assassin with claws gleaming. He trembles in fear. She smirks and throws out her weapons as he starts to run away. He despairs, thinking his end has come. But before she can strike, Will intervenes, conjuring magic to block her attack. He identifies her as the assassin Phyllis. She's surprised that he knows her identity. Amused, she declares that since her name is exposed, she'll have to silence him permanently. Terrified, he asks who she is. He explains she's a notorious serial killer who's been wreaking havoc recently. He asks if she's after him and Will confirms it but assures him not to worry. He promises to protect him. She's impressed by his knowledge, hinting that he might have an informant. She draws her dagger, saying it doesn't really matter in the end. She vows to kill him as she vanishes before their eyes. She teleports behind him and decisively strikes, but he reacts instantly, intercepting the blade. Even she is stunned since no one should have been able to react to that. She kicks away and throws herself into the air before landing with ease. He recognizes the dagger she wields. It should have been owned by a famous adventurer. She confirms it, saying it's no surprise he recognized it since he created it. He shouts, demanding to know why she has it. She coldly reveals she killed its former owner and claimed it as her own. He stares in disbelief. She laughs, declaring herself more worthy to wield it than the one who came before. He grits his teeth, saying that's not for her to decide. She argues that the world belongs to the strong and the weak are fated to be crushed. He calmly challenges her. He smirks as he says if that were the case, there should be no problem if he were to take it back. She calls him interesting, though she insists it's impossible. In an instant, she launches in for an attack. Their blades clash again, sparks and steel ringing out. He warns him about the sword's dangerous effect of absorbing magic from wounds. As they duel, he thanks him for the heads up. Even though he already knew, The battle goes on. She grows frustrated, realizing none of her strikes are landing. She tells herself he shouldn't be able to keep up with such erratic movements, yet he blocks everything without strain. He notes her stamina should be running low now. He knows how strong she is, but her constant use of teleportation eats away at her magic. It's a weakness that should normally be balanced by her weapon's ability to drain power from her opponents. But because he refuses to be hit, she hasn't been able to recover anything. She declares the warm-up is over and prepares to get serious. He says that all that remains is for her to reveal her hidden trump card. She warns that he's the one who will regret underestimating her as she readies her next move. She shuts her eyes as she conjures up her magic. She then holds a blade wreathed in dark, sinister energy. She lunges forward with a fierce strike, her weapon glowing with deadly power. Dark energy erupts around them as the clash intensifies. She boasts that even if he dodges, her attacks will still cause damage. He counters with a defensive technique, summoning a dark shield that negates her strike. Shocked, she demands to know how he managed to block it. He calmly explains it's because he knows her and her abilities. She insists no one should know of this technique, since all her victims died before they could share it. He replies coldly that it's unfortunate for her, since now she's out of magic and stands no chance. He swiftly lunges at her and knocks her down. Pressing his hand to her, he unleashes a spell called Mana Jammer. She cries out in confusion, and he explains that draining her mana while it's low scrambles her mind, forcing her into disorientation and unconsciousness. She collapses to the ground, defeated. He confirms that the danger has now passed. Shaken, he stares at the body on the ground. He asks if he's been truly saved. Will confirms it, and he crashes onto the ground in relief. He smiles to himself. If Phyllis hadn't been stopped here, she's written to claim many more lives in the future. Jillian's fate was supposed to end here as well. He wonders if the story is bound to shift because of his intervention. He gratefully thanks him for saving him, insisting on repaying the favor, and asks how he can help. He smiles, appreciating the offer, as Jillian explains he works for the finest blacksmith in town. Eager to repay him, he offers him the best sword he has ever crafted. Will politely declines the offer and explains he seeks a weapon that has not yet reached its true potential. Realizing his intent, he enthusiastically offers his help instead. He accepts but frames it as a debt to be repaid when the time comes. He reluctantly agrees, acknowledging the arrangement. He requests at least to know the name of his savior. He introduces himself simply as a C-rank adventurer named Will. He acknowledges this might spiral into something bigger. Still, he looks forward to working with him and offers his help anytime. Meanwhile, she stirs faintly on the ground. He prepares to hand her over to the knights and returns the dagger to him. As he departs, he suddenly questions whether he ever actually gave his name. He brushes it off, reasoning that anyone who knows him must have heard of him before. He carries her through the streets. He sets her down against a crate. He kneels before her, casting a spell to stabilize her senses. Her eyes twitch open slowly, and she begins to stir. As she regains awareness, he calmly asks if she's awake. Startled, she recognizes him. He reacts quickly, binding her with a restraining spell that locks her movement. Now tied down, he tells her it would be best to talk. She smirks darkly and warns that she could still kill him if she found an opening. He also reminds her that her life is in his hands. Unless he chooses to spare her, only death awaits. The threat strikes fear into her, and she immediately drops her act, nervously claiming she was joking. He cuts straight to the point and asks if she's willing to strike a deal. She looks up cautiously, asking him to explain. He guarantees her survival if she agrees to become his pawn through a binding contract. She scoffs at the offer, claiming she'd rather die than accept such terms, so he accepts her choice without hesitation. Panicking, she quickly retracts her words and begs to know the exact terms of the deal. He warns her that any more jokes and negotiations will end. He explains that she must obey his commands completely and refrain from any actions that could harm or disadvantage him. She will still have her freedom otherwise, limited only by those rules. With a sly smirk, she teasingly asks if his commands would also include satisfying his desires. His aura flares furiously as he threatens her for making crude jokes. Frightened, she yells that she was serious this time. He dismisses the matter, assuring her he won't issue such commands. She requests one more question and he allows it. She asks whether he would ever order her to kill. He admits it's possible depending on the circumstances, though rare. Without hesitation, she agrees to the contract. She says she's content with simply living and acting freely under his terms. He accepts but imposes that she's forbidden from killing anyone unless he explicitly orders it. She complains he didn't mention such a condition earlier. He challenges her if that's going to make her back out. She sighs and reluctantly agrees to the terms. He then seals their deal with a binding ritual. A surge of magic overwhelms her as the contract takes effect. With the pact complete, he announces they're now linked by the contract. He wastes no time and immediately issues two commands. First, she must return the evidence of the job against Jillian. Second, she's forbidden from appearing before him unless summoned. She mocks him for being a strict master but ultimately complies. She even jokingly begs to be ordered to kill more often, but he dismisses her. Frustrated, she calls him stingy as he walks away. On his way home, he reflects on how he's secured a useful pawn. He promises to make good use of a former assassin. Inside the weapon workshop, Jillian's rivals celebrate, believing their plan succeeded. They toast, confident that Jillian is out of the picture. They're confident in their hired assassin's capabilities since she's a feared killer in the underworld. They know she's a deviant obsessed with killing. He says he should probably dispose of her before she even comes for him. He reassures himself that his business will remain untouchable, just like when he got rid of Jillian. His laughter echoes into the night. The next day arrives. Guards knock at his door, announcing his arrest for conspiracy and attempted murder. Shock spreads across his face. He reasons out, shouting that it must be a mistake. They insist they have proof and begin dragging him away. He thrashes and yells that he's innocent, demanding to be released. They wrestle him into submission, hauling him off despite his resistance. Watching from the shadows, he observes quietly. He reflects that with this man removed, Jillian will no longer be targeted. He can now safely grow into the crucial blacksmith he's meant to be. Letting him die here would have been a waste. He decides it's time to head to the Dragon Forge. They arrive in front of the shop. She questions the timing, but he states he has business to finish. At the forge, he requests an audience with the shopkeeper, but the attendant hesitates. He apologizes, saying it would be difficult to see him today. He slyly suggests leaving a message instead, instructing the attendant to tell him that an adventurer named Will has come. Though reluctant, he agrees and heads off to deliver the message. Muttering to himself, he wonders why the name would matter. He informs him that Will is here to see him, and Jillian panics and orders that he'll be let in immediately. He rushes back to deliver the news. He quickly returns to Will, saying that he's available to meet. She demands to know how he even knows him, and he casually replies that he shares a bit of history with the man. She presses further, suspicious about what kind of history that could be. Inside, he greets him warmly, thanking him sincerely for the previous day. He politely thanks him for making time despite his busyness. She immediately catches on that something happened yesterday without them, growing curious. He notices the girls and asks if they're with him, prompting Shal to nod. He explains that he saved his life from an assassin's attempt. They're stunned and impressed, praising Will for such a feat. He elaborates that the knights questioned him earlier, revealing the culprit to be the owner of Weapon Works. With both shops being rivals, the motive to sabotage was clear. He shakes his hand, calling him his savior. He then turns to him and asks what business brought him here this time. He generously offers to forge him any weapon he desires, promising something worthy. Carla gets excited, realizing how significant the offer is, while Shal asks what's so special about it. She explains that his weapons are priceless, some worth entire fortunes. He clarifies he isn't here to buy weapons, but has another purpose. He requests to join him and his mentor for dinner that evening. He's surprised he knows his master's name, and he explains they'd met before. He warmly agrees to the dinner invitation, confident his master will be pleased. He makes a joke about the girls joining them. Carla starts to argue while he laughs it off and apologizes. He thinks to himself that everything for his plan is falling into place. He needs a legendary blade that only Grum can forge. Later, he meets Grum, who learns about Jillian being saved. He smiles and confirms it. He asks his master about their connection. Grum tells him Will once asked him for a weapon. He praises his eye for talent, thinking he has a natural knack for recognizing greatness. Will, however, reflects that it isn't mere talent since he already knew what he sought. He grows serious, admitting he owes him for saving his apprentice. Still, he can't forge him a weapon. Shocked, he also demands to know the reason. He reveals that his creations bring misfortune, sparking bloodshed and conflict wherever they appear. He declares he'll only forge for someone truly extraordinary. He listens in shock, realizing he never knew this about his master. Despite that, he insists he still wants Grum to make him a weapon. He steps forward and proposes a challenge. If he can reach the 70th floor of Friar's dungeon, then he should forge him a weapon. Everyone reacts with disbelief at the mention of the 70th floor. She warns Will that only the strongest adventurers ever made it that far. She reminds him that even the legendary immortal winners barely managed to reach that depth. He calmly insists he's serious, saying without such an accomplishment, he'll never earn Grum's craftsmanship. Shal pledges her loyalty, promising to follow Will wherever he goes. He contemplates the challenge. He recalls that the immortal winners themselves only reached that point using weapons he had forged. She's stunned, refusing to believe he's the craftsman behind their legendary arms. He acknowledges his knowledge again and finally relents. He promises to make him a weapon if he can reach the 70th floor and bring back some scarlet steel. He presses for confirmation, and he vows to uphold his word no matter what. They shake hands to seal the deal. She clarifies if his plans include her, and he responds that it definitely does. She tells him not to do anything reckless since she values her life. He reassures her, saying he doesn't intend to die and will make the right preparations. She sighs in resignation, agreeing to go along with his plan. Jillian excitedly cheers them on. He's thrilled at the chance to see Grum create something extraordinary again. She questions their certainty, when the chance of failure is higher. He says he genuinely believes they can do it since Will belongs to their party. She goes quiet, moved by the trust placed in them. He says he'll be waiting to see them return with scarlet steel in hand, and he promises to bring some back. He eagerly offers help, saying he'll lend weapons if needed. He accepts the offer and asks to see the Dragon Forge's finest equipment. The next day, they head to the Dragon Forge. They're handed new weapons, each glowing with high-quality craftsmanship. He holds up a gleaming blade, noting its origin and its extreme lightness and durability. He also thinks it's strong enough for their next trials. She tests her own weapon, satisfied with its balance and power. She thanks Jillian sincerely for hers. He laughs, saying it's the least he could do for them. With preparations seemingly complete, he urges the group to head straight for the dungeon. He says the rest of the preparations will have to wait until they're inside the dungeon. He says they'll have to get stronger to reach the 70th floor. She mutters that he probably has another bizarre method, but he tells her they're facing it head-on this time. He then shocks her by saying she's the key figure in this plan. He says they're going to be enjoying her monster cuisine from here on. She startles and asks what kind of preparation that is. Still, she smiles. She confidently tells him to leave the cooking to her, promising the finest monster cuisine. The group sets off on their journey once more, racing across new regions. Defeating monsters came easier. They zoom through the water areas with Jin's help. There, they witness aquatic monsters, including a giant octopus. Soon, they discover an underground hole. They step into it, and he announces their arrival in the volcano area. He explains that the average temperature there is extreme and monsters are B-rank threats. He says they should pose no threat, but still reminds them to be careful. She trembles nervously when she hears about the B-rank monsters. She focuses on the fact that their targets must be these B-rank creatures. He tells them they should set up camp since they'll be staying for some time. He reveals that they might stay for a month or so. He explains that a month is nothing compared to their goal of reaching the 70th floor. She questions why she's still sticking around, but resigns herself to it. They begin searching for a safe campsite. Using his magic, he activates a heat detection spell. The spell allows him thermal vision to safely scan temperature variations. He pinpoints the heat sources, even spotting creatures in the area. Confident in his range, he leads the group as they continue. She notices the temperature starting to drop. She realizes he's leading them toward a cooler zone. They find a cavern with decent airflow and lower heat, making it a suitable camp. Carla complains it's still hot, but Shell suggests they'll get used to it. For a place to sleep, he conjures an entire house from the ground itself. The girls gape at the sight, overwhelmed by his magic. He explains the stone structure is safer than tents. Just in case, he also produces a magical space map to keep track of their location. With preparations complete, Will declares it's time to start monster hunting. They get fired up, eager to know what kind of prey they'll be facing. He tells her it's going to be a wyvern. She grins excitedly at the idea, saying it sounds perfect for a meal. He explains that wyverns are filled with magic and eating their meat would boost their mana and strength considerably. She eagerly takes on the role of cooking it to perfection. Then he shifts the focus to battle tactics. Wyverns can fly and breathe fire, with scales that protect most of their body. To exploit their weak bellies, the plan involves Shell riding on Jin's magic support. They aim to restrict its movement and force it to land, to which she confidently agrees. She chimes in, but he tells her that her cooking makes her too valuable to risk in direct combat. She chuckles, taking pride in her importance, and makes him promise to keep treating her with the same respect. He calmly agrees with a smile. The battle begins with the wyvern unleashing flames while she counters with magic. She successfully disrupts the wyvern's flight. He seizes the opportunity and casts a powerful ice spell, Frost Storm. The attack freezes and grounds it, finishing the fight. He declares the operation a success with calm satisfaction. Brimming with confidence, she steps in to handle the rest. He gathers her tools and spices from his item bag. The monster's body lies before them. She steels herself, knowing the magical energy inside must be dealt with first. She draws her blade, carefully cutting into the creature's hide. With a fierce command, she drains the lingering magic out of the wyvern's veins. Smiling confidently, she declares the meat safe for cooking. She begins slicing through the flesh, planning possible dishes as she works. At last, she reveals the lavish meals she prepared. They stare in awe, praising how delicious it looks and tastes. She basks at their compliments as she insists they hurry before it cools. She revels in the food, overwhelmed by how good it is compared to anything he's had before. He admits he never imagined wyvern meat could taste so rich. She smiles brightly and urges them not to waste a single crumb. She eagerly promises to eat as much as she can. As they feast, magical energy begins to surge within them. He reflects that their magic levels are indeed rising as expected. He thinks ahead, knowing that after a month of this, their growth will be significant. Time passes, and the group continues their battles. They never ran short on wyverns to hunt and feast upon as they trained their magic. She stretches and notices the amount of time that has passed, admitting she's grown tired of wyvern. He agrees, saying he's craving something else too. They both agree that they were tasty, but he worries of losing focus if they repeat it over and over. He explains that in order to keep progressing toward their goal, they need a new target. She leaps to the ground and asks what they're going for this time. He points out that their next prey is the rock. She immediately recognizes it as an A-rank bird monster. She admits it'll be a tough battle, but with him around, victory should come easily. He quickly shuts it down, declaring they will be the ones taking it down. Their protests erupt immediately, voices filled with panic. They can't believe he'd throw them against such powerful monsters. He remains firm, explaining that true strength comes only through real combat experience. She hesitates, questioning if birds will have any effect. He tells her rocks are ranked even higher than wyverns, so she need not worry. With a resigned sigh, she agrees to move forward. She agrees, saying they'll have to step up if they want to reach the 70th floor. She shouts with determination, vowing to give it her all. He notes that rocks nest near volcano peaks and wishes them luck. They surge forward together. He watches them dash ahead. Then he readies himself for his own task. He launches forward, intending to reach the 40th floor to retrieve a hidden item. He'll have to return quickly to their floor when he's done. If he's successful, the item will prove invaluable in their push toward the 70th floor. He dashes even faster. Then he dives into an underground cavern. He dashes through flowing lava with ease, but something catches his attention. He realizes he's been noticed. From the shadows, an A-rank monster slithers into view. Uninterested in wasting time, he declares he has no intention of fighting. He tries to slip past, but more of them surround him. He sighs, realizing he'll have to fight after all. He raises his hand, unleashing a powerful sonic spell. A wave of sound erupts, rattling the cavern and forcing them back. Seizing the chance, he dashes away with blinding speed. He acknowledges the unlucky timing but quickly adjusts his approach. To avoid further distractions, he activates a special skill, wrapping himself in a cloaking aura. With this stealth in place, he confidently resumes his advance. He notes that the technique drains his mana, but it should last long enough for the current objective. Meanwhile, the girls spot their new foe high above. They ready themselves, knowing the beast is far larger and more menacing than a wyvern. Its eyes glint, unleashing a powerful screech as it dives toward them. Carla takes command, urging Shao to strike with his wind magic. She releases a blast of wind energy, pushing back against the rock's charge. She charges alongside it, meeting the monster's descent head-on. She lands a strike. The impact knocks the bird back slightly, but it soars upward again. Shao calls out for her to press once more. Determined, she nods and charges. From behind, she channels wind magic into her staff. She then charges in right after, combining the attack with her own strike. Their coordinated blows clash against the rock with explosive force. The monster screeches as their attack forces it down. She cheers, thrilled that their plan worked, while she pants in disbelief, realizing she's truly grown stronger. Both girls acknowledge that Will's training has made a huge difference. She suddenly wonders what Will is up to while they fight here. Deep inside the dungeon, Will reaches the 40th floor. He knows there's no point in concealing himself anymore. From the glowing tunnels emerge red dragons, blocking his path. He recalls how facing these beasts once nearly cost him his life, but he's far stronger than before. He says the amount of monsters is perfect to test out his current abilities. He decides to experiment with a spell against them. He launches an icy spear of magic straight into one of the dragons. The attack pierces cleanly, bringing the beast down with force. He aimed at its weak spot, but he still can't believe it only takes one blow. The other dragons roar in sync. They begin lunging forward. He summons Aqua Sword. He slashes through the fiery beasts with ease. Then he conjures a wall of wind. With another swing, he unleashes Wind Blade. He notes that red dragons are no longer a threat to him, but as he looks ahead, he realizes their numbers have no end. He gathers icy power in his hand, determined to end the fight in one strike. A wall of ice surrounds him, leaving him confident in reducing their numbers. A more massive figure looms from a distance. He declares the last opponent to be upper echelon. The dragon roars at him furiously. He reminds himself to get serious this time. It lunges at him with its jaw wide open. He barely blocks in time as he realizes how strong the monster is. He jolts back, noting how his earlier attacks won't work. Still, he smiles and recognizes it as an opportunity to test his power. He casts a fiery boosting spell. He forces it to retreat a few steps back. He declares it's now his turn. He dashes in with his weapon burning in flames. He slashes at it, cornering it further. Seeing the damage he's done, he decides to leap. With confidence, he declares he'll tear off its wings. A massive strike of ice magic cleaves through as he casts the attack from above. The beast crashes down, crying and wounded. He lands calmly, stating the fight is finished. He starts to walk towards it. The dragon still twitches with lingering strength. He notices it's stubborn as it tries to conjure an attack. Holding his blade, he remains unfazed. He decides to end it by drowning it with its own breath. The dragon unleashes fire from its mouth, but he quickly casts his own spell. He channels the dragon's power back against it. An explosion consumes the dragon in a raging inferno. With composure, he declares the battle is over for real. He reflects that the goddess blessing tilted the fight in his favor. He acknowledges its overwhelming advantage against dungeon foes, granting him 15 times more damage. The massive gate ahead creaks open, signaling his advance. Inside, he discovers a glowing treasure chamber. A glowing necklace rests on the altar, identified as the Fan Necklace. It is said to completely conceal the wearer's presence. He notes its usefulness against monsters and traps. He puts it on, declaring that it will let him take shortcuts through the dungeon with ease. With the treasure obtained, he decides it's time to return. He remarks that the necklace has already proven its worth. Using his magic, he dashes away from the dungeon. He reflects on how effective the item is at avoiding unwanted attention, making his return much quicker. He sees the two girls resting at campfire. He says it looks like they were able to finish their mission without a problem. They stare ahead in confusion, convinced they'd just heard his voice. They swear to have heard his voice, making him realize he's still wearing the necklace. Suddenly, he jumps out and startles them with a playful scare. They panic and demand to know where he came from. He reveals it was thanks to the fan necklace, which conceals his presence completely. He says it's a hidden dungeon item he happened to find. Shao questions if it was difficult to obtain, just like the brush. He explains that knowledge is what truly matters in uncovering hidden treasures. Then he asks how their hunt turned out. They exchange a look as they boast at how easy it was thanks to the training they received. He's pleased with their progress, but he suggests continuing their training by targeting more monsters in the volcano area. 2 weeks later, they mark their first month inside the dungeon. He tells them it's time to return home. She stretches, glad the training is finally over. Despite the struggle, she admits they'd grown much stronger from it. He says he's also gained significant strength, and Shao credits her cooking for keeping them going. She blushes at the compliment but remains determined to hold out against the monsters in the 70th floor. His face suddenly turns serious as he thinks about it. That night, the group celebrates at the tavern. They raise their mugs together in triumph. Around the table, he thanks them for their hard work. They smile, appreciating his words. She takes a drink, but reminds everyone that their true work is only beginning. He quietly trails off his thoughts. He tells them he intends to descend alone to the 70th floor. Both girls jolt in confusion. She frustratedly asks what all their training was for. He explains it was to strengthen them further. He says having a clear goal in mind allows them to feel like being capable of anything. She asks how he'll make it there, since it would prove to be a very difficult feat. She cuts in, making a guess that he'll utilize the necklace he obtained. He nods and tells her he's correct. He plans to conceal himself throughout the dungeon and collect the scarlet steel. He says the plan would work better if he's alone, but more importantly, he explains that the risk is too high to involve them. She acknowledges his kindness, but she still wishes she could stand at his side. Carla says there's really no other way if that's his plan, asking Shao for support. It takes her a while to answer, but she smiles and agrees anyway. He apologizes for sharing the plan too late despite their hard work. Carla admits she somehow feels relieved and thanks him for his concern. Then, she smiles cheerfully and tells them the night is her treat. They thank her for such a generous act. He notes how much progress their friendship has grown. He reflects that everything so far has been going according to his plans, but he admits to himself that their next destination in the dungeon is on a completely different level of danger. The next day, the girls join him before he leaves. They tell him to be careful and to make sure he comes back alive. He smiles, promising to return within a week. Then he sprints away. As he speeds forward, he calculates that reaching the 70th floor and collecting the scarlet steel should take about a week in total. He has already packed enough supplies to last that time, stored safely in his item bag. Though he knows the trials ahead will be harsh, he's determined to bring back the scarlet steel. With the volcano area conquered, he sets his sights on the next stage of his journey. The glacier area awaits. Thanks to the necklace, everything will run smoothly. He zooms through the dungeon, cutting across layers. In only 2 days, he pushes through and descends upon the 70th floor. His eyes sharpen at the crystal cavern before him. The cavern glitters rare ores, but its beauty comes with danger. The crystals feed the life force of monsters lurking within. Mining such crystals would mean facing the monsters as well, defeating the purpose of his necklace. The monsters in the area are all difficult too, each of them belonging in the S rank. Most especially, the Jorok Golem belongs in the SS rank, and he doubts he can win against it. Crystal beasts emerge, their jagged bodies shining like blades, but he knows of another way to bypass the threat and claim what he came for. His focus sharpens on finding the scarlet steel. Calling forth magic, he summons the crystal compass. The compass glows, detecting the unique energy hidden within the minerals. He begins walking around, even spotting monsters from behind. He presses deeper before he halts. He spots it. Gleaming clusters of scarlet steel welcome him. All that remains is the task of mining it. He prepares to combine multiple forms of magic to avoid the gruesome battles. He sets up his first spell, casting a veil that suppresses hostility. The next spell he prepares will redirect vibrations back into the ground. Finally, he lays down a silent spell, which muffles the sound entirely. Confident with all precautions in place, he announces his preparations are complete. Monsters outside sense nothing from him. He grips his pickaxe tightly and steels himself, ready to test his plan. His first strike against the scarlet steel lands, vibrations dispersing harmlessly thanks to the layered magic. He looks around and is instantly relieved that everything is going according to plan so far. He pushes forward, determined to mine as much as he can, knowing any weapon forged from it will be extraordinary. Days later, after completing his task and making the journey back, he emerges to the surface. Returning to town, he reports back to Grum, presenting the scarlet steel ore as promised. He's completely stunned by the sheer quantity he managed to bring back. He explains that he collected every piece of scarlet steel he could carry. He reminds him of their agreement, asking if he'll forge the weapon as promised. He studies the pile carefully. He exchanges a knowing look with the boy, who smiles confidently. He says he's left him no choice but to forge. He promises to make not just a weapon, but a legendary class one. He thanks him sincerely. He tells him to return in 3 days when it will be ready. Back at home, he greets Xiao. She instantly leaps towards him in relief. He laughs at her reaction, but she only says she couldn't help it. She asks if he was able to get the ores. He confirms that he succeeded and already handed it in for forging. Jillian cheers from behind as Grum crafts the blade. 3 days later, they return to the shop. He proudly unveils the finished weapon. He lifts the sword, awed by its overwhelming power. He declares it his proudest work, created with all his skill. He smiles and thanks him sincerely. From here on, he intends to steadily expand his influence and save all those that needed it. After all, he already possesses the power required to move forward. He begins to secure financial success and status. Because of his knowledge, gaining wealth proved to be an easy task. His first move was partnering with the Dragon Forge. Together, they launched a new brand of equipment aimed at adventurers. Because adventurers often struggled with transport, they decided to sell item bags. With high quality guaranteed, the items would surely sell. For their key material, he chose a rare plant found only in a limited area of the dungeon forest. Adding storage functions to bags made from it turned them into products worth a fortune. Crucially, no one else knew about the plant's existence yet. To protect his monopoly, he even raised a barrier around the forest to keep others away. He declares that his victory is already certain. After some time, they were able to launch their new product. On the first day, the product sells out instantly. Customers gush about its usefulness, calling it convenient and worth the high price. Everyone reflects on the overwhelming success of their venture. He laughs and praises Will, admitting he expected success but not such a massive hit. She bursts out with excitement, calling him incredible. He thinks to himself that the world is essentially his to shape as the original author of it. She teases that he's practically a millionaire now, admitting the gap between them has widened. She boldly asks him for some money. He admits that sharing wealth was always his plan. They look at him in surprise as he lays out his next idea. He offers to invest in her dream and encourages her to open a shop specializing in monster cuisine. Inwardly, he admits it's all because he wants to change the course of the story, but to them, he simply says he wants to change the world. Carla calls his goal ambitious, but knowing him, he probably can do it. She strengthens her resolve, promising to give her best for both Will and herself. He explains that to spread monster cuisine, the restaurant must become the most popular in town. He reassures her to leave it to him. Construction begins on the new restaurant. To promote it, they took advantage of their already existing brand. Word spreads quickly, with excitement building even before the restaurant opens. He notes the real challenge lies in creating an interior that stands out from others. Though not a professional designer, he trusts his instincts to make something appealing. He chooses a bright, open interior. He decorates it with plants and flowers to give a natural atmosphere. She marvels at the results, impressed by how inviting it looks. He proudly agrees. She says the focus now must be on the menu and ingredients, but she assures him she'll handle it. He says he isn't worried in the slightest, making her realize how much trust he has on her. He reminds her that the restaurant wouldn't exist without her. She blushes, thanking him sincerely. She reflects that besides her master, he's the first person to ever truly accept her. He reassures her that the entire city will soon recognize and praise her. Finally, the restaurant opens its doors with a grand opening. Customers start reeling in. Some of them couldn't help but remark on the monster meat's tenderness and taste. The restaurant immediately becomes a huge hit. The fame solidifies his name and reputation even further. With this success under his belt, he declares it's time to save the story's key character. In order to save the characters, he will need to get in touch with Alan. He's planning to save 3 genius people. They were powerful people who died in battle, one of them being the prodigy from the City of Magic. The other is the descendant of the ancients. And lastly, the tribe leader of the frozen wasteland. He resolves to intervene carefully and save them. Starting with the prodigy, he travels to the City of Magic. He traveled alone since he's working secretly. In the original tale, Alan arrived there in search of new magical knowledge, and this is where he was destined to meet Mika, the prodigy. As his conflict with Lux Magna intensifies, she falls victim in the middle of it all. Alan is set to learn about magic structures from her, which will allow him to create magic in the future. He decides to carefully manipulate the situation without breaking the flow of events. He finally encounters Alan in the city and greets him. He happily returns the sentiment, smiling wildly. Mika eyes him, asking who he is, and Alan introduces him as both a friend and a benefactor. She acknowledges with a curt response. He mentally notes that in order to save her, he must suppress her magic to keep her away from Lux Magna's attention and prevent them from stealing her heart. A heart afflicted by magic rampage, like hers, can be transformed into a powerful magic core. He needs to adjust her schedule in order to save her. Alan and Mika were supposed to go on a field trip to study the city's power source. Lux Magna would then interfere, masquerading as Alan to lure Mika alone. He vows to prevent that chain of events. He summons Phyllis and she emerges instantly. He asks if she's been investigating Lux Magna like he asked her to. She nods and he assigns her the task of monitoring their members inside the city. She complains, frustrated that she's never ordered to kill. He notes her irritation is rising and could become troublesome. He tells her he'll consider it, so she reluctantly agrees. She instantly vanishes. Left alone, he starts to move forward. While Phyllis handles the enemy organization, he will track Alan and Mika's movements directly. Inside a room, he watches them study together. He notes how fast he's growing as he's learned to create magic much sooner than the original timeline. Mika stares and admits she never thought this outcome was even possible. He's overwhelmed with excitement, realizing he can now wield magic in its truest sense. She's equally shocked, admitting she never thought it was even possible. She warmly congratulates him, and he thanks her joyfully. Watching from a distance, he reflects that Alan only mastered this ability after her tragic death. Concerned, he wonders what's happening. He starts to retrace how deeply the story has been altered. Despite this, he acknowledges that their friendship has strengthened and his growth is now complete. He starts to feel confident with his plans. Soon after, he receives a report from Phillies that their plans are in motion. Inside the magic library, an intruder successfully makes their way inside. He notes that all that's left is to disguise himself as Alan. A voice interrupts, demanding to know what they are doing. He reveals himself, calling out the infiltrator as Kane, a Lux Magnet executive known as the Shape-Shifting Fencer. He sneers, recognizing him. He accuses him of always interfering. He stands firm, vowing to put an end to him here and now. He laughs coldly, declaring that he won't be the one walking away from this fight. He disappears from his vision. Instantly, he lunges at him with a sudden strike, shouting to kill him. He blocks it off with his weapon. His eyes widen, but he tells her to relax, since he doesn't even see him as a worthy opponent. Suddenly, magic starts to glow from within his body. Feeling the pain, he demands to know what he just did. He coldly replies he has no obligation to explain himself. He summons Phillies, who immediately appears. With furious eyes, he grants her permission to kill Kane. She grins maniacally, thanking him for his generosity as he panics on the ground. He acknowledges that not bringing Xiao Long was the right call after all. He then arrives at the Valley of Dragons. This place has long been home to half-dragon people who guard the legendary Book of Prophecy, which contains the fate of the world. The book was entrusted to them by the ancient dragon Valo, a rare kind who wielded both prophecy and magic. He foresaw disasters and maintained balance in the world, but even he could not resist the passage of time. Knowing his life was ending, he left behind his offspring along with the book. Among his descendants is Leo, the one he must now save. Will arrives at Raconal Village, where Alan is destined to learn the truth about his origins and purpose. The village is said to allow only those connected to the Book of Prophecy to enter. As Will, he's not welcomed inside, but he plans to wait by the perimeter. Alan, on the other hand, is of course welcomed without issue. From outside, the village is hidden by a powerful barrier, its interior invisible to outsiders. He keeps watch nearby, waiting for the next event to unfold. Suddenly, a winged warrior approaches him directly. He wonders how he's been detected when his presence should have been concealed. To his surprise, Leo recognizes him and invites him into the village. He asks why he's being allowed, and he tells him he has the qualifications to enter. He hesitantly follows, realizing this means he too is written into prophecy. They finally arrive at the hidden settlement. He quietly follows behind him. He notes how powerful he is with his immense physical strength and the ability to foresee the future. Soon after, he runs into Alan again at the Dragon's Shrine. He puts up an act and says he didn't expect to see him here as well. Together, they are brought before the Elder of the Raconals, where Alan is told of his birth and mission. The Elder addresses him, calling him someone who carries the world's fate in his hands. He then tells him only his father is still alive, and he has unknowingly met him within the past few years. Shocked, he struggles to accept that he might have already encountered his own father. He explains that he's a demigod, son of a deity who never descended to the mortal plane. He desperately asks where the meeting happened, but the Elder refuses to answer. He explains that their laws forbid interfering with fate as it might change the prophecy. He apologizes before shifting the conversation to Will. He takes it as a confirmation of the book's mention of him. He tells him that he also holds the world's fate in his hands, like Alan. This stuns him, prompting him to ask if he's being placed on the same level of importance as Alan. He stresses that both of them will play essential roles. Alan excitedly praises Will, saying he must be even more amazing. He starts to worry about their actions altering too much. That night, he lies awake as Alan sleeps beside him. He reflects uneasily, unable to make sense of what he's recently learned. He senses that something larger is unfolding, something even the author of it can't fully grasp. Alan suddenly speaks, asking him if he's awake. He feels his unease, and he admits he's overwhelmed with all the new information. He says he feels the same, but claims that as long as they have each other, they can overcome any obstacles. He smiles and agrees. He tells him the truth about his father still startled him and confesses he can't remember any meeting at all. He chuckles and says he supposes he wouldn't. He reassures him that the truth will become clear in time. The next morning, as they prepare to leave, several men emerge. He immediately recognizes the expected attackers. Behind them, a portal appears. A man reveals himself from the smoke. He asks him who they are. Gal introduces themselves as Lux Magna, declaring they've come to seize the book. Leo clenches his fist, refusing to hand it over. He calls for his men, declaring they'll seize it by force. Leo calls for Alan and Will to run. He instantly rejects the idea and tells him they'll fight alongside him. He agrees, his expression firm. He vows to show the difference in their strength. He recalls how Leo originally lost his life in this fight, but he resolves to change that outcome. He unleashes his immense power. Gal looks at him with furrowed brows. With energy coursing through him, he declares he'll crush Lux Magna right then. Leo thanks them both for their assistance. He calls on his allies, pledging to protect the saviors of the world. The battle erupts as the warriors clash with the enemy forces. They both leap into action, moving as one. Leo warns that the enemy commander is the strongest among them, but he says he'll handle him. Looming behind, he watches silently. Alan insists on taking him on. This shocks both Will and Leo. Originally, he was supposed to listen to Leo, but this works better for them. He notes the two items he possesses, the staff which increases the strength of his spells and the ring which allows him to freely move through space. They will have to be cautious around those, so he decides to support Alan strategically. He dives in, yelling that they'll never hand the book to people like them. He glares fiercely, declaring he will meet his end today. With his staff glowing, he unleashes a devastating spell. Before it strikes, Leo dives in, vowing not to let the attack touch Alan. He unleashes his own counter. The two attacks clash violently. Gal admits he didn't expect his resistance, but mocks that he can't keep it up forever. Alan retorts that stopping it once is all that's needed. He charges forward, determined to end the fight. He smirks and raises his staff again, conjuring a barrier of dark energy to block. He slashes through the barrier with sheer determination, refusing to back down. The blade meets the barrier and he screams that it's pointless. The clash shatters the dark defense, leaving him stunned. Enraged, he attempts to retreat using his ring, but as soon as he wears it, the steel shatters. Will steps in and casts a sealing spell to block any escape. Riding Jin, he coldly states that he'll never allow him to run away. With no way out, he curses in rage. In that moment, Alan strikes decisively, piercing through him. He instantly falls lifeless to the ground. With him defeated, only the scattered remnants remain to be dealt with. Leo has been kept safe through it all, yet Alan's actions diverge above the original story. Events that should never have occurred are unfolding around them. He turns to them both and expresses his gratitude. He then calls upon his warriors to slaughter any remaining survivors. The battlefield erupts once again as they charge at the enemies. The battle reaches its conclusion with Leo saved. Once they leave the village, they set out together. Too many mysteries linger unanswered, mysteries even he can't comprehend. The next key lies in uncovering the truth found within a higher being. Their journey now leads to Frostheim. It homes the Ista tribe, who are said to descend directly from the gods. To the far northeast rises Mount Celesti. At its summit, one can commune directly with the gods. Determined, they will set out to climb it and uncover the hidden truth. He cheerfully points at the distant village. From this point on, they walk into an unwritten story. He acknowledges that the story is reaching its climax, and he must find a way to guide it toward the best possible ending. Inside the village, they're greeted by the chief named Taurus, who assumes they came to commune with the gods. She's half human, half fox spirit, and a reincarnation of the god of war. He recalls that in the original story, she wasted their time with deception, but he says he won't allow it this time. She smirks, declaring she will test them to see if they are truly qualified to meet the divine. He immediately calls out the ruse, saying there's no real qualification. She simply takes amusement in toying with them. His blunt words leave both Alan and Taurus visibly shaken. Embarrassed, she denies it, but her reaction betrays him being right. Enraged, she conjures blue fire in her palm, warning she won't forgive an insult so easily. He states they aren't here to fight but only to meet the gods, and she repeats the test she requires. He challenges her to set them on fire as proof of their worth. He panics, questioning Will. She's startled that he already knows about her ability but decides to dismiss it. She says she'll gladly grant his request as she unleashes her magic. He panics, but he warns him not to evade the attack. The flames crash down around them. Smoke clears and they emerge unscathed. He explains that soul fire incinerates the weak, but against those with superior magical strength, it loses all effect. He challenges her, asking if she still doubts their right to proceed. She falters, reluctantly conceding their strength. She warns that climbing the mountain will be an unforgiving trial, questioning if they are truly ready. Both boys answer with confidence. Accepting their resolve, she declares she will be their guide. She notes it is also the time for her own divine revelation. The group trudges through the snow, following Taurus' lead. Navigating the mountain will require her guidance without question, since only members of the tribe would know the correct route, which is why he has to ensure her survival. If she were to die, the god of war's power would spiral out of control, unleashing devastation upon the world. He recalls her murderer, the leader of Lux Magma named Zargos. Once the god of destruction, he wielded overwhelming divine power, but was eventually cast out for his cruelty. He aims to dominate both mortals and gods alike and regain his throne by force. Alan is meant to be the one to bring him down, according to the original tale. That's why they're doing everything possible to ensure the story reaches that final point. At last, she halts and announces their arrival. Before them stands a massive divine monument carved into the mountain. They marvel at the sight before she instructs them to pray. They nod and kneel behind her. He shuts his eyes. When he opens them, he finds himself somewhere else. Realization strikes that he now stands within the divine realm as he faces the goddess of destiny. She acknowledges him as the creator of the world. He questions her claim, but resolves within himself that he's the author after all. She asks him what he means when he himself is the supreme deity. Shock runs through him, unable to accept such a revelation at first. She assures him it's the truth. She explains he once reincarnated on Earth to destroy Zargos, and once more as a human in this world. The truth unsettles him, leaving him speechless. He stammers, realizing this means he is effectively Alan's father. She confirms this without hesitation. She adds that Zargos already knew of this truth. With the supreme deity absent, he has set his sights on the divine throne itself. He realizes that Zargos will no longer follow the path set by the original story. Before he can think further, cracks shatter through the divine space. She warns that someone is breaking into the divine realm, confirming the presence to be of their enemies. He notes that he must have shifted his target toward the throne instead of Taurus. He demands to be sent to the heart of the divine realm, determined to stop him there directly. She accepts and blesses him with words of victory. In the blink of an eye, he arrives. Alan appears as well, the two of them reuniting. He asks if he's caught up with their mission. He nods, confirming that he's ready for what's ahead. They stare ahead, yet within him lingers the strange weight of knowing Alan is his son. The ground shatters as the guards order to capture the incoming intruder. From the hole, a figure emerges, calling them rude for such a welcome. The soldiers stare at the rising presence. Zargos rises with grim authority, his very name causing dread. He summons a force of ruin, calling upon the dragon of destruction. The beast coils into existence, instantly knocking the guards out. He grins with arrogance, mocking that the so-called heavenly soldiers are nothing more than fools. Meanwhile, the mortal realm falls into chaos as Lux Magnus' disturbance forces the gods to act. Their absence leaves the divine realm vulnerable. He seizes the moment, soaring straight toward the shining heart of the realm. He catches sight of the empty throne. He smirks, ready to claim its power for himself. Just as he approaches, a voice calls from behind. The two of them appear together, declaring they won't allow his ambitions to succeed. He mocks him, recognizing the previous supreme deity reborn in human form. He calls his persistence annoying. To take on a human form as gods aren't allowed to kill one another. Alan's confused, but Will states this seems like the only way to erase him forever. He taunts them, pointing out that as a human, he no longer has the strength to kill a god. He knows he cannot do it alone, but he has the hero Alan next to him. His determination shines as he says there's no enemy they can't defeat together. He sneers at their bond, but he says Alan no longer poses a threat to him. He vows to use their souls as sacrifice to become the supreme deity. He asks him if he's ready. He nods, encouraging both of them that they can do it. He says defeating him will introduce peace to the world. Alan responds that they'll have to give their best. Determined, they face their enemy head-on. He recalls at his mention of not seeing Alan as a threat, since he knows all of his tricks at this point. In that case, he declares himself the one who must finish him. He vows to defeat him and deliver the happy ending the story deserves. He calls out to Alan, daring him to strike. He charges forward, fire in his eyes. Their blades clash as they face head-to-head. A wave of blinding light explodes as he unleashes his astral blade. The attack tears across the battlefield, forcing both sides back. He follows with another strike, channeling rocks towards his direction. He calmly counters with a dark shield that swallows the energy whole. He staggers midair, realizing none of his blows are landing. He mocks him, reminding him he's no longer a worthy foe for him. He watches the battle from below, analyzing the gap in power. He admits the difference is overwhelming. Desperation creeps in as he wonders how he can possibly win. Resolve heartens in his gaze. He realizes there's only one possible path forward. He calls out to him, ordering him to buy time since he has a plan. He agrees as he attempts to hold the enemy back. He sneers at him, questioning if he can stand his ground. He roars back, proving he can. As their magic flashes across the air, he seizes the opening. He presses a hand to his temple, channeling his telepathy. He reaches out across realms, calling to the god of light. The voice answers, recognizing him as the supreme deity. He makes his request clear to unlock his full potential. He notes that this falls in line with the vow he once made as the supreme deity, surprising him. The god accepts his request and reminds him of the consequences. Meanwhile, Alan continues his desperate fight as his blade flies across the air. He overwhelms him with a wave of his magic. He struggles to push back, casting magic to simply block it off. Each clash shakes his body and leaves him barely standing. He mocks him, calling the so-called hero pathetic. He tries to hold his ground, but Zargos sees through his wounds. Dark energy gathers in his palm, preparing a decisive attack to erase him for good. He casts several orbs and grins mockingly. The spell rushes towards him. He could only call Will out in response. Just as the strike is about to land, golden flames block it as Will apologizes for being late. He sees him standing before the shield of fire. He turns to him and reassures him that he's done enough, telling him he'll handle the rest. Exhausted but relieved, he entrusts everything to him. He encourages him just before he collapses to the ground. He notices how he seems to have surpassed human limits, questioning how he can withstand it. He responds that while magic has always been beyond his reach, his physical power has always been unmatched. With his current form, he declares himself the strongest in the world. He narrows his eyes, warning that such power cannot last long. But he's accepted the risk, stating this is the only path to protect everything. He steels his resolve, proclaiming that he will not allow the world to be destroyed. He sneers, amused that he still clings to the same ideals he held as a deity. He roars out his intent to destroy the entire world. Determined, he tells him this is where they settle everything once and for all. He grins, swearing to bring everything to an end. He immediately rejects it, saying his purpose was to carve out a new future for everyone. He counters with pure hatred, claiming that he'll destroy such a future. He channels his power into a destructive collapse of resentment. He looks up, promising to end it here. He unleashes his finishing strike, a radiant surge of power tearing through the darkness. The battlefield erupts as light and darkness collide. He recoils in disbelief, shaken by the overwhelming force. He tells him the story's purpose is to set him straight. Light engulfs as he declares the end of the struggle. Yet he resists, swearing the battle isn't over, and that he will become the supreme deity. He glares ahead, calling him a failure, o god. The attack pierces forward, sending him flying. As the blaze consumes him, he cries out in denial. His words fade away just as his body does. The eruption fades, leaving him alone above it all. He breathes out softly that it's over. Alan stirs awake, groggy and weak. He looks up to see Will standing before him. Joy bursts across his face as he realizes they've won. He blinks, noticing he can see right through Will's body. He tells him this is where they part ways. He pleads for answers, wondering if it's because he failed to defeat Zargos himself, but he says it's only because his mission is complete. He cries out, desperate for him to stay. He only manages to offer an apology. He turns, thanking him sincerely. He says he's the one who should be grateful, recalling how he was always the one protecting him. He softly thanks him as tears fall to the ground. He declares that it was his honor, and that he has no regrets left as he fades into the light. His eyes widen as he watches his body dissolve into light. He cries out, chasing after him as Will says his final farewell. His scream echoes through the entire throne room. Back at the mountain, he collapses and sobs uncontrollably. Taurus approaches, confused by his tears and the absence of Will. Through his grief, he reveals that Will saved the world and has become the true hero. He breaks down completely, his wail carrying into the frozen air. He admits he cried for 3 days before mustering the strength to find Will's friends and tell them what had happened. As the door opens, Chel's face greets him. He forces himself to smile, trying to keep his role as the hero. After telling her the news, she struggles to believe it. He keeps silent. Then her expression crumbles, crying out in anguish and grief over the loss of her master. Suddenly, a voice cuts through, halting her cries. By the door, a silhouette appears. Will steps out and apologizes for being late. She rushes forward, tears turning into relief as she throws herself. Alan can hardly believe it, asking if he's truly alive. His true purpose had been to be reborn as a human. He was able to survive because of the countless measures he set in place long ago. He wipes his tears away, saying he's glad to hear it. Still crying, he tries his best to welcome him back. She also smiles despite the tears in her eyes and welcomes him home. They both rush in to embrace him. He now knows that this is a story that unfolds after the best happy ending. He wonders what new journeys lie ahead. He vows to simply enjoy this world as another character in the tale, alongside those he loves.